Chapter 203. Han Qinggu said with a helpless expression, "That's what I thought at first. But my good sister just came back from abroad. She hasn't returned to China for more than 5 years. Besides, she's unfamiliar with Star City, and I'm afraid she might encounter an accident." Tan Xiu said, "She's from abroad. Let her go directly to Shanghai with you." Han Qinggu said, "She's already on the plane and I can't contact her for the time being. Also, I have something very important to do in Shanghai, so it's really inconvenient for her to accompany me. Don't tell me you only know me in Star City." Tan Xiu said with a helpless expression. "I'm just a student. How can I have so much time to accompany her?" Han Qinggu couldn't help laughing and said, "Don't say it like you're a busy person. You've already finished your college entrance test, and you usually have nothing to do. What else can you do besides playing?" "Tan Xiu, I've been opening the back door for you for the past 2 months, so help me this time." "Opening the back door?" Tan Xiu looked at Han Qinggu with an incredulous expression and said, "Miss Han, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't speak irresponsibly. When have you ever opened the back door for me?" Han Qinggu said, "You skipped classes for so many days, yet I really held you accountable. Didn't I promise you that you can go home every night?" With a strange expression, Tan Xiu asked, "Does this count?" "Of course," Han Qinggu said with a serious expression. Tan Xiu let out a wry smile and helplessly said, "Forget it, forget it. It's my bad luck to know you." "Say it. What's your friend's name? How do I contact her when she arrives in Star City? Let's talk about it first. How I entertain her is my business. Don't look for me to settle accounts after you come back from Shanghai." Han Qinggu was pleasantly surprised and said, "That's great. You can rest assured. I'm very grateful that you're willing to help me. How can I settle accounts after the autumn? You don't need to take the initiative to contact her. She'll contact you when she arrives. Anyways, I'll go first and catch the noon flight to Shanghai." Tan Xiu waved his hand and prepared to leave the classroom. Han Qinggu suddenly seemed to recall something. She opened her bag and took out a stack of money from it. She handed it to Tan Xiu and said, "Here's 5,000 yuan. My good sister is coming. Use this money to entertain her. If it's not enough, you can always call me." Tan Xiu didn't refuse. Since he was working for Han Qinggu, it was only right for him to receive money. Shoving the money into his pocket, Tan Xiu walked out of the classroom. Noon. After having lunch in his family's restaurant, Tan Xiu decided to go to the Star City Antique Market. He had wanted to refine an interspatial ring for a long time, but because he was still lacking some ores, he had delayed it until now. He planned to go to the antique market to try his luck. If he was lucky, he might be able to find some precious ores. However, he wandered around the antique market for the whole afternoon, but he didn't find any precious ores. Instead, he found a good antique. Unfortunately, it was too expensive. He didn't have the hobby of collecting antiques, so he didn't waste the money. On the way back to South Gate Town by taxi, he received a call from an unfamiliar woman. After asking, he learned that the caller was Han Qinggu's good sister who came from abroad. "After you arrive at Star City's downtown area, find a hotel and stay there first. I'll look for you later." Tan Xiu instructed and directly hung up the phone. Star City Airport. The moment the tall Chen Wei stepped out of the airport's exit, she attracted the attention of countless passengers outside. She was wearing short shorts, a t-shirt and a small sleeveless top, a platinum necklace on her neck, and pink sunglasses on her face. But the most attractive thing about her was her flaming red lips. Apart from the latest limited edition Louis Vuitton handbag in her hands, there was nothing else in her hands. There was also a delicate white leather suitcase. "What the hell is Qinggu doing? She found a student to accompany me, but this student doesn't even have the most basic manners. She knew that I'm going to Star City at night, but she didn't even come to the airport to pick me up." Chen Wei hatefully stamped her feet as she turned around and walked toward the taxi parking area. Caesar Grand Hotel. Star City's 5-star hotel, although it wasn't the best, but its grade was high enough. The entire hotel building was 40 to 50 meters high, and it was built with an extraordinary style. Chen Wei booked a high-class room and comfortably took a bath. After changing into a fresh set of casual clothes, she heard the doorbell ring. "You're really late," Chen Wei muttered with dissatisfaction. If she didn't feel a bit hungry, she really didn't bother to open the door. Because she knew that aside from Han Qingwu's student, no one else could come here. The door opened. Chen Wei looked at Tan Xiao, who was standing outside the door, before she turned around and returned to the room. With a slightly dissatisfied voice, she said, "You finally came. If you didn't come, I would have been starving. Come in." Tan Xiao had imagined the scene of meeting Chen Wei, but never in his dreams had he thought that it would turn out to be this kind of situation. He stared blankly and secretly shook his head. After entering the room, he went straight to the sofa and sat down. He grabbed the magazine on the table and began to read. Chen Wei ignored Tan Xiao. Although she shouted that she was starving, the makeup process wasn't fast at all. After a full hour, she finished her makeup. Then, she picked up her LV bag and said, "I'm done, let's go." Tan Xiao looked up and asked, "Where are we going?" Chen Wei snappily said, "Of course, we're going to eat. Why don't you look at the time? It's almost 9 p.m. I think we'll just have dinner today, so we don't even need to eat supper." Tan Xiao was speechless. He had arrived at the hotel, but it was not even 8 p.m. She was the one who dragged her makeup for an hour, yet she actually blamed him? Forget it, a good man doesn't quarrel with women. She's Han Qingwu's good sister. I'll deal with her for 2 days, and when Han Qingwu comes back, I'll immediately say goodbye to her and never see her again in this life. Thinking up to there, Tan Xiao walked to the bedside, grabbed the phone, and was about to dial a number. Chen Wei asked with a puzzled expression, "What are you doing?" Tan Xiao said, "Don't you think it's too late? Then you don't need to go out to eat. The hotel provides dinner, so you can directly ask the hotel's waiter to send it to your room. After you're done eating, you should rest early. I still have to rush back." Chen Wei said with an inconceivable expression, "You can't call for a meal. Don't you know that the hotel's food is not delicious? Take me out to eat. I want to eat the most famous and best snacks in Star City." Tan Xiao frowned and said, "I don't know what the most famous and best snacks in Star City are. If you really don't want to eat the hotel's food, then let's go to a small restaurant outside and fill our stomachs. You've been on the plane for a long time. Rest early and you'll have the energy to stroll around tomorrow." Chen Wei shook her head and said, "No, no, no. I'm not tired at all. I slept enough on the plane, so I don't need to adjust the time difference. Your task is to accompany me and lead the way. Whatever I want to eat, you must accompany me to eat. I'm not your father." Tan Xiao muttered inwardly. He turned around and followed Chen Wei out of the room. The Caesar Grand Hotel was located in the bustling area of Star City, with an upscale residential area on the east and a commercial street on the west. The south side was the famous food street of Star City. After arriving at the food street with Chen Wei, Tan Xiao couldn't figure out the situation here. He had been here before, but only a few times. Every time he passed by this place, he had never eaten anything here. He found that there were not only upscale restaurants here, but also a lot of snack alleys. "Which one do you want to eat? Tell me, I'll treat you." Tan Xiao, who was at Chen Wei's side, said lightly as he found that Chen Wei was constantly looking at him with inquiring eyes. Chen Wei said with dissatisfaction, "I don't know anything about this place. How would I know what to eat? You take me to eat something special and tasty. Whether it's an upscale restaurant or a roadside snack, it's fine." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I don't know anything about this place. Don't forget my identity. I'm just a student. I don't have the chance to come here to indulge in debauchery." Chen Wei was surprised and said, "Even a student shouldn't." "Oh, I get it. This place is not the United States. Students are good babies. Forget it. Since I don't know, then I'll go to each house and have a taste. Tan Xiu secretly sighed inside. Chen Wei's arrogance was like that of a princess, and he was very disgusted. However, he would only follow her for 2 days. It would be over after fooling around for a while. Eventually, after tasting a lot of snacks, Chen Wei entered a Hunan restaurant. Tang Xiu, who had been following beside her, also ate some food. But he was really surprised. Chen Wei had a good figure, yet her appetite was unexpectedly so big. She ate at least twice as much as him. He felt full, yet she was still able to eat. Soon, Chen Wei ordered a table full of sumptuous dishes and 2 bottles of beer. Do you have anything to eat? Aren't you afraid of eating too much? Tan Xiu asked with a somewhat inconceivable expression. Chen Wei rolled her eyes and contemptuously said, "Are you a man or not? A good man eats everywhere. Your appetite is really shameful. Although I've eaten some snacks before, I'm only 40% full. It's a habit that I've formed in the past. If I don't eat until I'm 100% full, I won't feel full at all." What a freak. Tan Xiu made a final conclusion about Chen Wei's hobby. After gulping down 2 bottles of beer, the sumptuous dishes on the table were almost finished. Chen Wei patted her bulging belly with satisfaction and sighed, "The food in China is really delicious. Back in that damn foreign country, I only had milk, bread, and roasted meat every day. I almost vomited." Tan Xiu gave Chen Wei the nickname Rice Bucket inwardly and asked, "Now that you've eaten and drunk your fill, shouldn't you go back to the hotel to rest?" Chen Wei picked up her bag and said, "What time is it now? Going back to the hotel to sleep is a waste of your youth. What's more, sleeping after eating was something only a pig would do. Let's go to a bar. Big sister will treat you to a bar to drink and watch pole dancing." "I'm not interested." Tan Xiu frowned and said. Chen Wei said with a sneer, "You're so young, yet you're pretending to be decent. You're afraid that I'll tell Han Qinggu, right? Rest assured, this sister's reputation is guaranteed. I'll never sell you out. Let's go to a bar." "I really don't like going to a bar," Tan Xiu said with a serious expression. Chapter 204. Chen Wei angrily said, "Are you a man or not? Don't tell me you're really a kid who hasn't even grown hair yet. If you're a hairy kid, then go home and sleep. If you don't want to go, then I'll go. I'm an old monster who has lived for 10,000 years." Tan Xiu cursed inwardly. He deliberately showed a helpless expression on his face and said, "It's not safe to go to bars at night, especially domestic bars. There are a lot of perverts and local gangsters. If you don't want something to happen, listen to me and go back to the hotel to sleep." Chen Wei contemptuously said, "Do you think I'm a fool? Although I haven't been back to China for many years, I'm still very familiar with the domestic public security. Are you going or not? If you don't want to go, then don't be long-winded and quickly leave." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, "I'll go." Chen Wei proudly said, "That's more like a man." 3 Feathers Bar. It was the most luxurious bar in the nearby food street with the largest flow of customers. The neon sign flickered. Before they entered the bar, the explosive metal rock music rolled over. After entering, it was even more deafening and incomparably noisy. Tan Xiu didn't like this kind of occasion, but he couldn't leave immediately to protect Chen Wei's safety. He could only endure the chaotic scene inside and followed Chen Wei to the front of the bar. "Do you see that? It's a live broadcast of a pole dance performance. That girl has a very good figure and is very sexy. This kind of woman is definitely a stunner that attracts men. Also, do you see those 2 girls dancing on the dance floor? Those 2 girls with tattoos on their necks. They're definitely the flowers of the underworld, specialized in seducing men. Although their quality is good, I believe they're already black mushrooms. Chen Wei leaned close to Tan Xiu's ear and said aloud. Tan Xiu really didn't know what to say. Facing this exotic fighter like Chen Wei, his psychological endurance always accepted the challenge. As if she didn't see the frowning expression on Tan Xiu's face, Chen Wei took the cocktail handed by the bartender and took a sip. She raised her hand to wipe the wine stain on the corner of her mouth and excitedly said, "The bars in China are really not worse than those abroad. It's a pity that there are too few erotic dancers. Otherwise, it would be a feast for the eyes again tonight. Look at the 3 o'clock direction, that man is really a piece of work. With a good figure, good skin, and good looks, he must be someone with a big tool. Why don't we take him to the hotel tonight?" Tan Xiu immediately turned his face away, indicating that he did not know this weirdo. Chen Wei finally noticed Tan Xiu's unusual expression. She reached out and pulled him, making him look at her. Then, she burst into laughter and said, "Little bitch? You haven't had a girlfriend, right? Do you want Big Sister to teach you a few tricks tonight to hook up with a girl and get a room in a hotel? Don't worry, I'm a woman, I naturally understand a woman's thoughts. Although your appearance is ordinary, and your clothes are also ordinary, as long as you use the method I taught you, you will definitely be able to capture him." "Not interested," Tan Xiu said lightly. Chen Wei's eyes widened because of the blush on her face after drinking, which added a bit of beauty to her. However, at this moment, her face was full of disbelief. She looked at Tan Xiu and exclaimed, "Not interested in women? Are you gay?" "You're the one who's gay," Tan Xiu retorted snappily. Chen Wei proudly said, "So what if I'm gay? This young lady is not only gay, but also bisexual. I like strong men, but I like beautiful women even more. Unfortunately, this great aunt has the heart but not the guts. Up until now, even if I have a boyfriend, it's only limited to kissing. Furthermore, that man is also a good-for-nothing, a cowardly guy. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean." At this moment, Tan Xiu thoroughly understood the meaning of this sentence. He really couldn't understand Chen Wei. This woman was like a psycho when she went crazy. But when she put on makeup in the hotel, she was gentle and quiet like a well-behaved baby. "I think you're not only bisexual, but also a schizophrenic." Chen Wei was surprised. "How do you know?" "I'm like a princess during the day and a slut at night. Don't you men like me?" Tan Xiu grabbed the drink handed by the bartender and gulped it down in one gulp. Then, he turned his head to the side again. Chen Wei rolled her eyes with a bored expression. She held the crystal glass and drank the cocktail while looking at the men and women twisting their bodies on the dance floor with great interest. The scene of debauchery, the atmosphere of debauchery, the hands, and the restless body rubbing against each other. All of these were the thoughts of men and women seeking pleasure in the bar. A few minutes later, Chen Wei waved her arm at Tan Xiu as she swayed her slender waist and entered the dance floor. Soon, she was dancing together with several young and handsome men. Tan Xiu only cared about Chen Wei's personal safety. He didn't care about her debauchery. As long as she didn't bring a man back to the hotel, he didn't need to squat at the door of the hotel room and guard the door for her. He was too lazy to care about Chen Li's pleasure. After staying in the bar for more than half an hour, Tan Xiu found several men and women whom he didn't know before. They had their arms around each other's shoulders and left drunk. These men and women were either having a one-night stand or trying to take advantage of him. However, he also found another phenomenon. Someone was selling drugs. Looking at Chen Wei, who had high interest and didn't leave, Tan Xiu suddenly had a bright idea. A brilliant idea emerged in his mind. Along with the outline of his mouth, a curved smile appeared on his face. He took out his mobile and walked out of the bar. He then dialed a cell number in a nearby hidden corner. Star City Public Security Bureau, Criminal Investigation Unit's conference room. Ching Xuemei was analyzing the case with more than a dozen people at the same time. She had yet to find the murderer of the shooting near Southgate Town, followed by the disappearance of the Zhang family's clansmen, the Long family, the Ouyang family, as well as the magnificent Tang Corp's joint venture funds for the construction of the buildings prepared by the Zhang family, as well as the fights that broke out in various entertainment venues in Star City. All of these made her extremely busy. I believe that there's definitely a pair of hands behind the scenes manipulating the Zhang family's case. We must investigate this case clearly. Otherwise, the higher-ups will never let us live a good life. Everyone. Ring, 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 the cell phone's ringtone interrupted Qing Xuemei's words. Qing Xuemei's brows creased. She grabbed the phone and looked at it. To her surprise, the caller turned out to be Tang Xiu, the mysterious and seemingly ordinary guy in her heart. After hesitating for a moment, she picked up the phone and asked in a deep voice, "Tan Xiu, what's the matter?" "Captain Cheng, I have an important discovery to report to you." "If it's true, will there be a reward?" Tan Xiu's cheerful voice came from the phone. "Say it." Qing Xuemei said. "It depends on what you want to report." "I'm at the Three Feathers Bar now." Tan Xiu said. "You should know about it, right? The Three Feathers Bar is very close to Star City's dining area. I found that someone is selling drugs there, and the quantity is very large. I've been here for more than half an hour, and they have sold at least tens of thousands of drugs. I suspect." "You suspect that it's drugs?" Qing Xuemei said with a deep voice. Tan Xiu said, "I don't know whether it's drugs or not. Do you want to check it? If it's really drugs, then you can follow the clues and catch the drug traffickers." For a moment, Qing Xuemei was silent and then said, "Continue to monitor there. Don't beat the grass and alert the snake. Also, pay attention to your personal safety. We'll immediately take our men and rush there." "All right." Tan Xiu complied and happily hung up the phone. They returned to the Three Feathers Bar. What made Tan Xiu speechless was that Chen Wei was hugging a 17- or 18-year-old girl, talking and laughing while drinking. Looking at their intimate appearance, anyone who didn't know them would think that they were a same-sex couple. Another glass of wine. Although Tan Xiu couldn't taste the cocktail, he still followed the local customs and ordered another glass to quench his thirst. Chen Wei turned her head and saw Tan Xiu's appearance. She then said with a smile, "Hey, handsome, where did you go just now? I thought you left me and went back alone. What do you think of this little sister in my arms? She's my type. She's well-behaved and cute, and her mouth is very sweet." Tan Xiu glanced at the smiling girl again, shook his head and said, "Keep hugging and kissing her if you like it." Chen Wei said with a smile, "What? Don't you want to taste this little sister's mouth? It's really sweet. I can guarantee that she'll absolutely satisfy all your wishes." "Not interested." Tang Xiu didn't have a good impression of the girl with heavy makeup even though her looks were not bad. If he wanted to taste a woman's mouth, he might as well find that little witch, Ouyang Lulu. It seemed that Andy, who exuded a loli's aura, was also not bad. Not to mention that Andy also had 2 big breasts. Chen Wei pursed her lips and snorted, "Humph, you're really not a man." It's said that young people are easily impulsive and have a lot of interest in that aspect. You're simply a freak. Tan Xiu was too lazy to pay attention to Chen Wei. He wanted to see the efficiency of the Municipal Criminal Police Brigade, so he silently calculated the time in his heart. 15 minutes later. More than a dozen criminal police members and a large number of police from the Public Security Bureau arrived. Qing Xuemei took the lead and commanded the overall situation. Soon, she sent people to block all the passages in the bar. When the explosive music stopped and the colorful lights disappeared, they were replaced by bright crystal lamps. Qing Xuemei shouted loudly, "You're the boss. Everyone, take out your ID cards. The police received a report that someone is selling drugs here. If you don't want to cause trouble, come to our police station for tea and obediently cooperate with us." Drugs. It was a taboo word in many people's hearts. Upon hearing Cheng Shuamei's words, the dissatisfied guests immediately became well-behaved. However, there were still 4 or 5 youths carrying bags in the bar. They hurriedly stuffed their bags under the sofa. Tan Xiu could see it clearly. He calmly used his mobile phone to write a short message and send it to Cheng Shuamei. Then, he looked at Chen Wei with a smile. He knew that tonight's bar life would come to an end. Today's 4th chapter is over. Crying for monthly votes. Chapter 205. Sure enough. Chen Wei angrily glared at Cheng Shuamei and the policeman. She fished out her ID card from her bag and muttered, "Really annoying. These policemen have nothing better to do. They came to disturb this great aunt's happy occasion. I thought I could play to my heart's content today." The girl in her arms looked a bit nervous. She quickly looked at Chen Wei and whispered, "I'm going to the washroom. Do you want me to go with you?" Chen Wei asked. "No need." The girl's answer was more urgent. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes as he looked at the girl's back as she left in a hurry. He thoughtfully said, "Big sis Chen, this girl you hooked up with is not simple. Her expression is very nervous. If she didn't do something illegal, then her identity is very sensitive and not suitable to be investigated by the police." "How do you know?" Chen Wei was surprised. "I guessed it," Tan Xiu said. "Guess your head," Chen Wei said with dissatisfaction. "Quickly take out your ID card. You should be an adult, right? I remember that Qinggu is teaching high school, and her students have already taken the college entrance test. You're her student and should have taken the college entrance test, so you should have your ID card." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Your logic is very strong, and your reasoning is very accurate. However, I've always been a person with face. Even the police won't check my ID card. Do you believe me? You've been following me all night. Only now did I find out that you like to brag." Chen Wei ridiculed. Tan Xiu said with a strange expression, "How about we make a bet? Not only will the police not check my ID card, but I even dare to molest a policewoman. Do you see that? She's the policewoman who just spoke. She's quite awe-inspiring and seems to have a high position." Chen Wei contemptuously said, "You? Your courage is even smaller than a rabbit. You don't even dare to flirt with a girl, yet you dare to molest a policewoman? What kind of joke is this? Just answer me, do you dare to bet or not?" Tan Xiu said. "Humph. Why wouldn't I bet? If the police didn't check your ID and you dared to flirt with that policewoman, I'll do anything you want me to." Tan Xiu asked, "Are you sure?" "Yes." Tan Xiu clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Just you wait and see." Saying that, he grabbed the cocktail on the table, drank it in one gulp, and strode toward Cheng Shuamei. In order to witness Tan Xiu's words, Chen Wei followed closely behind and quickly arrived at Cheng Shuamei's side. "Beauty, did you see the message I just sent you?" Cheng Shuamei had just seen Tan Xiu. She nodded and said, "I've seen him. There are already police officers searching over there. This time, thank you very much. Maintaining world peace is our duty as citizens," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "By the way, you still haven't told me what kind of reward I should get." Cheng Shuamei angrily said, "Can you be serious? Am I not serious?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Don't tell me I don't have any reward for being a good person. If so, how can I cooperate with the police in handling cases in the future? Then tell me, what kind of reward do you want?" Cheng Shuamei said with a helpless expression. Tan Xiu's expression slowly turned serious as he said, "It's my previous proposal. Why don't you wait for me for a few years? After I graduate from college, you can marry me. At that time, you can give birth to several children for me. As for the number of children, you can ask my mom when the time comes. You can give birth to as many as she wants. I'll definitely cooperate with you." Chen Wei, who was following behind Tan Xiu, was amused by Tan Xiu's words. Although she already knew that Tan Xiu just dug a pit for her to jump into, she didn't get angry at all. She realized that she couldn't understand this big boy who had been following her all night. Qing Xuemei's expression turned stiff. She was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. She quickly glanced at Qin Wei and deliberately revealed an angry expression. She glared at Tan Xiu and said, "Can you not talk nonsense? Be careful or I'll handcuff you and take you back to the Public Security Bureau for tea." Hitting and scolding is love. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Although I don't quite understand this sentence, I think you must be hinting something to me if you really take me to the Public Security Bureau for tea." "You." Qing Xuemei helplessly shook her head and sighed, "Your glib tongue is much more powerful than you. I heard that you've applied for Shanghai University. Do you have the confidence to pass it?" "I'm full of confidence." Tan Xiu raised his head and said with a smile. "I hope you can pass it." Qing Xuemei nodded and said, "All right, it's already late at night. Even if you just finished your college entrance test and want to indulge yourself, don't come to this messy place. Go back and rest early. I'll treat you to dinner another day if you really find out what you said tonight." "Are you going to treat me to dinner before returning to the imperial capital?" Tan Xiu asked. Qing Xuemei furrowed her brows and quickly glanced around. After finding that no colleagues heard Tan Xiu's words, she felt a bit relieved and said in a low voice, "Don't talk about it here. I'll personally contact you after dealing with the matter at hand in a few days." "It's a deal." Tan Xiu replied with a chuckle. He turned around and gave Qin Wei a provocative look and quickly left the Three Feathers bar. On the way back to the Caesar Grand Hotel, Tan Xiu said, "Do you still remember the bet between us? It turns out that you lost." "It doesn't count. You cheated." Qin Wei shook her head. "How did I cheat?" Tan Xiu looked at her with contempt and asked. "You knew that policeman before, and you're the one who called him here tonight." Qin Wei angrily said. "You knew that the bet with me was a trap, yet you deliberately made me jump. I'm not convinced. Why would I make a bet with you if I didn't have full assurance?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. "Cut the crap and accept the loss. If you don't admit it, then there's nothing I can do. I can only suspect that there's a problem with your character." "There's a problem with your character?" Qin Wei angrily shouted. "I admit it." "Say it. What do you want me to do? This great aunt is throwing caution to the wind today. You scared away my little belle. Even if you want me to serve you tonight, I'll agree." Tan Xiu shuddered. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I'm not interested in your body. My request is very simple. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, you must stay in the hotel obediently. You're not allowed to leave the door even half a step. If you're bored, you can play with your mobile phone or watch TV. If you're hungry, call the hotel's catering department and they'll send the food to your room." Qin Wei's eyes widened and she even straightened her chest. However, although she had a good figure with a willow slender waist and long legs, her chest was a bit flat. Although she wanted to show off her capital, she finally looked unwilling and resentfully snorted twice. "I'm not satisfied with your request. Also, I'll complain when Han Qinggu comes back. You don't look like you're willing to accept the loss." Tan Xiu said. "You," Qin Wei was furious. But thinking of Tan Xiu's words just now, she suppressed her anger to the bottom of her heart. She rolled her eyes and bluntly said, "It's not impossible for me to agree to your request. But, after all, Han Qinggu entrusted me to you, so you should be responsible for it. If you want me to stay in the hotel room, you must accompany me. I'm afraid to be alone. Only ghosts will believe you." Tan Xiu recalled all kinds of things Qin Wei had done. She even dared to flirt with other men and women in the bar, so why would she be afraid to stay alone in the hotel room? However, he was already satisfied as long as Qin Wei didn't go out to show off and create trouble for him. Therefore, in order to fulfill Han Qingwu's request, he nodded and said, "No problem. I'll come here every morning and go back in the evening. Are you really not afraid that I'll eat you? Tan Xiu angrily said. Do you have the guts? Chen Wei sneered. Tan Xiu no longer spoke. He found that arguing with a woman whose face was thicker than the corner of the city wall would only end in his defeat. She was like a wild horse that needed to be conquered by others, but he had no interest in conquering her. After escorting Chen Wei back to the hotel, Tan Xiu was about to bid farewell and leave. You really don't want to stay? Chen Wei leaned on the door with a smile yet not a smile as she looked at Tan Xiu and asked. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, It's too late. Have a good rest. Remember the agreement between us. You're not allowed to leave the hotel room even half a step without my permission. Bam! Chen Wei flew into a rage out of shame and fiercely slammed the door from the inside. Tan Xiu let out a complacent smile. He secretly felt that his strategy tonight was too wonderful for words. After coming out of the hotel room, he was about to stop a taxi when a police car slowly stopped beside him. The car window was opened as Qing Xuemei said with a serious expression, Get in. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he walked around the front of the car. He walked to the front passenger seat, opened the door, and sat inside. Is there anything else? Qing Xuemei said with all seriousness, There's something. It's very important. We were just in the Sanmao bar. We indeed found a batch of drugs. Just after you left, more than a dozen people in the bar sneak attacked the police who blocked the passage. Not only did they have controlled knives, but they also had firearms. 2 of our comrades were injured and have been sent to the hospital. However, we also caught those criminals. Since you've already caught the criminals, why are you looking for me? Tan Xiu asked. It's already late, I'm going back to sleep. I know you're very skillful. Can you help us catch some other important drug traffickers? Qing Xuemei said. We just got the information that there's a group of foreign drug traffickers in several rooms of this Caesar Grand Hotel. There's a young man called the Crown Prince who comes from Southeast Asia. Not only does he have a private army, but he also has a large piece of land planted with poppy. He's definitely a ruthless character. Tan Xiu snappily said, Big Bell Cheng, are you kidding me? I'm just a high school graduate who hasn't even entered the university's door. You actually want me to act together with you for such a big case? Can you bear the responsibility if something happens to me? Chapter 206. A disappointed look appeared on Qing Xuemei's face as she shook her head and said, I really can't afford it. If you don't want to help us, then forget it. Get off the car. We'll deploy the police force and hope to smoothly arrest those drug dealers. Tan Xiu looked at Qing Xuemei's expression and slightly furrowed his brows. He didn't get off the car and was silent for a while before asking, Why did you choose me? Qing Xuemei said with all seriousness, I think you'll definitely be an excellent police officer in the future if I train you well. I'm not just talking about your skills, but also your investigative ability. We can see from the surveillance cameras in Three Feathers Bar that you have a very strong observation ability to the surrounding environment. It's very difficult for an average person to find out that someone is selling drugs when they come to the bar for the first time. But not only did you find it, you also keenly observed the actions of those drug dealers after we arrived, which provided us with great help. Tan Xiu shook his head and forced a smile, I'm a bit embarrassed to be praised by you. Anyways, I'll help you this time seeing that it's not easy for you. Tell me the room number of those drug dealers from abroad. I have a way to help you figure out the situation in those rooms. What way? Qing Xuemei was surprised. It's a private secret that I can't disclose, said Tan Xiu snappily. This is not a joke, Tan Xiu. Qing Xuemei said with a bit of worry, you'll lose your life if you're careless. Those drug dealers are ruthless and merciless, and I heard that the Crown Prince is a guy who kills people without batting an eyelid. Also, we haven't finished deploying the police force yet, so we must avoid alerting them. Don't worry. Tan Xiu said lightly. I know what I'm doing. I'm only responsible for helping you figure out the situation in those rooms, which is my specialty. As for the arrest, that's what you should do. Qing Xuemei hesitated for a moment and said, 806,807,808. According to the information provided by the people arrested in Three Feathers Bar, the other party has a total of 6 people. Tan Xiu nodded and got off the car. Before leaving, he said, wait for my call. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu appeared on the 8th floor of the Caesar Grand Hotel. After finding the room number 806, his spiritual sense had already enveloped the 3 rooms, discovering that there were not 6 people inside, but 8 people. In one of the rooms, a young man with long hair dyed white was plowing a naked woman. However, in order not to expose his divine sense, he opened the door of room 805 and quietly climbed out from the window outside. Then, he nimbly appeared at the window of room 806. After pretending to observe for a while, he climbed to the window outside room 807 and 808. Very soon, after he took the elevator to leave the 8th floor, he directly dialed Qing Xuemei's number and told her about the situation he had investigated. Finally, he said, pay special attention to the white-haired guy in room 806. Not only does he have a gun on his bedside, but it's also a sniper rifle. I've seen similar guns on TV. Qing Xuemei asked nervously, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? I'm sure. Tan Xiu said. Qing Xuemei thanked him and hung up the phone. Tan Xiu put away his mobile. After leaving the Caesar Grand Hotel, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he went to the opposite building and entered an unlocked room. He stood by the window and quietly observed the movements on the opposite side. He found that there were already 2 snipers lurking in the building he was in, and in the opposite building, many criminal police team members in casual clothes were also quietly lurking in. Even a large number of armed police were hiding in the vicinity of the entire Caesar Grand Hotel. They came fast. Tan Xiu secretly sighed. However, just after he said that, his complexion slightly changed. It was because he was keenly aware that a middle-aged man appeared at the window of room 808 of the Caesar Grand Hotel opposite. The middle-aged man was holding a mini telescope and looking down. He couldn't hide it anymore. Tan Xiu grabbed his mobile and immediately dialed Qing Xuemei's number. After the other party picked up, he said in a deep voice, if my guess is correct, your police deployment has been exposed. The other party is using the telescope to observe from the window and must have seen a large number of police. Hurry up if you want to take action. At this moment, Qing Xuemei appeared on the 8th floor of the Caesar Grand Hotel. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, her complexion instantly turned ugly. She didn't know why, but she had an inexplicable trust in Tan Xiu from the bottom of her heart. Therefore, she didn't hesitate and fiercely shouted, arrest them at the same time. Counterattack immediately if you encounter any resistance. Pay attention to the 3 people in room 808. They should have noticed the abnormality below. Bam, 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 the doors of the 3 rooms were respectively smashed open by 2 policemen. The well-trained armed police officers cooperated with each other and rushed into the room with their guns' muzzles moving. Bam, 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 intense gunshots came from room 806 and room 808. At the same time, the 2 snipers in the opposite building also aimed and fired. As for the 3 people in room 807, they were caught off guard the moment the police rushed in and were aimed at by the muzzles, so they didn't dare to act rashly. Tan Xiu stood at the window of the opposite building, watching the gunfight that took place in the modern world. He secretly shook his head. Such a trivial case really couldn't cause any fluctuation in his mood. He believed that in the case of the disparity in strength between the police and the bandits, those drug dealers would probably meet a dead end if they were to resist. As for the police, they might be injured or sacrificed, but the final result was that they would be able to completely kill or arrest those drug dealers. Go back. Just as Tan Xiu was about to leave the window, he suddenly saw a figure from the corner of his eyes, as he jumped out from room 808 of the opposite hotel. Moreover, that person was obviously grabbing a rope that he didn't notice before. Furthermore, the other party was as agile as a spirit ape. He followed the rope and descended at an extremely fast speed. It's that white-haired youth. The knight couldn't block Tan Xiu's sharp eyes, and he instantly recognized the identity of the person. No, the window on the second floor below room 808 is open. There are still people inside. That woman. Tan Xiu observed and found that after the white-haired youth used the rope to descend to the window on the second floor, he immediately stepped on the windowsill with his toes. And inside, a woman in her 30s reached out and grabbed his leg, pulling him into the room. At this time, even Tan Xiu couldn't help but admire the other party's good calculation and ability. That rope should be the escape route that the other party had arranged in advance. In case of a dangerous situation, he could directly use the rope to escape. And that woman should also be arranged by the other party in advance, or even in the same group as the other party. Sigh. As long as those two people are still in the hotel, the guests in the hotel will encounter danger at any time. Chen Wei, that weird woman is still in the hotel room. If she is unlucky and meets them, I won't be able to explain to Han Qinggu. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and quickly left the building. I'm sorry, the Caesar Hotel has been sealed off. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Just as Tan Xiu wanted to enter the Caesar Hotel, he was stopped by the police responsible for sealing off the hotel's entrance and exit. My name is Tan Xiu, said Tan Xiu. I'm also a participant in this case. Call Qing Xuemei, she knows. The police officer stared blankly. He hesitated for a moment before he directly took out his walkie-talkie and reported to his superior. Half a minute later, the police officer received the order to let Tan Xiu in. In the corridor on the 8th floor, Qing Xuemei was directing the cleaning of the gunfight scene. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival, she quickly asked, "Why did you come back?" "Don't worry about how I came back," said Tan Xiu. "Send someone to check the room on the second floor below room 806. The white-haired youth who just escaped went to the second floor along the rope. Also, there's a woman in her 30s in the room on the second floor. She's also one of those drug dealers. If the police's blockade is tight enough, then, the two of them must still be in the hotel." "How did you know?" Qing Xuemei was shocked. "I was in the opposite building just now," said Tan Xiu. "I saw it clearly." Qing Xuemei nodded and immediately issued the order according to Tan Xiu's instruction. She didn't even ask for permission from the Public Security Bureau chief, Deng Jianmen, who had just arrived. Tan Xiu and Deng Jianmen met face to face and then left while Qing Xuemei was busy. He came to the door of Chen Wei's room. Not long after he rang the doorbell, the door was opened. Tan Xiu saw that Chen Wei was wearing pure white pajamas, with her long hair hanging loosely, and even her bare feet stepping on the carpet. "Hey, didn't you just leave? Why did you come back?" Chen Wei's expression was a bit pale. Even though she said so, she quickly walked toward Tan Xiu and pulled him into the room. Then, she forcefully closed the door from the inside and locked it. "It's dangerous here, so I came back," said Tan Xiu. Chen Wei said with a bitter expression, "I want to say that I'm unlucky. Or is the security in our country worse than abroad? It's only my first day in Star City, and I just encountered a shootout between the police and the robbers. Tell me, does this kind of thing often happen in Star City?" "It used to be very good," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But in the last 2 months, there have been a lot of murders. If you're afraid, then quickly leave Star City tomorrow." "Who's afraid?" Chen Wei angrily said. "This great aunt is not used to this kind of thing happening in China. Let me tell you, when I was abroad, this great aunt has encountered a lot of shootouts. Also, I forgot to tell you that I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. Usually, 3 to 5 big men are not my match." Looking at her thin arms and legs, Tan Xiu didn't feel like bickering with her. He went straight to the window and looked at the scene outside. At the same time, he quickly released his spiritual sense. As long as the white-haired youth was still in the hotel, his spiritual sense could cover the entire area. It wouldn't be difficult to find him. Strange, why isn't he here? Chapter 207. Even the slightest movement in the wind and grass couldn't escape from Tan Xiu's monitoring with his spiritual sense. Even if there was an old book in a mouse hole, a few rice grains inside, or even an ant on the ground, he could clearly find it. However, he didn't find the figure of the white-haired youth and the woman in this hotel building. Did they just evaporate from the face of the earth? Tan Xiu didn't believe that their speed could be that fast. After all, the entire hotel was now sealed by the police. Even if they wanted to escape, it was impossible to do so in such a short time. But where are they? After carefully searching for a few times, Tang Xiu finally decided to check everyone. He knew that there was a kind of disguise technique that could change one's appearance. The characteristics of the white-haired youth were too obvious. If he wanted to escape without being noticed, he would have to cover his white hair. Sure enough. After a careful investigation, Tang Xiu finally found two suspicious people. Although their appearance had changed, Tan Xiu was sure that the two people wearing janitor clothes and pushing the cart were the white-haired youth and the woman. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and was about to call them. Suddenly, he remembered that this place was surrounded by the police. Moreover, there were surveillance cameras in every corridor. If he told the news to Qing Xuemei and Qing Xuemei later checked the surveillance video, she would definitely find out his secret. Forget it. I'll do it myself. It can be considered as getting rid of the evil for the people. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly as he turned and walked toward the door. At this time, Chen Wei had returned to the bed. She pulled the quilt to cover her body and sat there, watching Tan Xiu. Seeing Tan Xiu's action, she quickly asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm going out to do something." "You stay in this room and don't go anywhere," said Tan Xiu. "Remember, the danger outside has not been eliminated yet. If you run around, you're likely to be taken hostage by those drug dealers." Drug dealers? Chen Wei's mind was still active. She instantly recalled what happened in the Three Feathers bar and hurriedly asked, "Are you also involved in this matter? Are the drug dealers in this hotel related to the Three Feathers bar's people?" "That's right," said Tan Xiu. The police knew that there were foreign drug dealers in Caesar Grand Hotel because of the people they caught at Sanmao Bar. "You must remember, you must never go out, because the drug dealers in this hotel are ruthless characters who kill without blinking an eye. They come from Golden Mountain Corner, and not only do they have pistols, they even have light machine guns." Chen Wei's complexion turned pale as she hastily jumped off the bed. She quickly grabbed Tan Xiu's arm and hurriedly shouted, "You can't go either." Tan Xiu said, "I have serious business." Chen Wei loudly said, "I don't care how important you are, you must stay in the room. You're just a high school graduate. Don't think that you can show off just because you know that beautiful police officer. Han Qinggu has handed me over to you. You are only responsible for my personal safety. I'll be responsible for your safety as long as you don't leave the room," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Also, I have some understanding of the situation outside, so you better not stop me." "I'm stopping you," Chen Wei angrily shouted. Tan Xiu sighed. He moved lightning fast and knocked Chen Wei out in a flash. He picked her up by her waist and directly threw her on the bed. Then, he turned around and left the room. In the corridor on the second floor, Taylor was pushing a small cart. He was wearing a cleaner's uniform with a hairband on his head as he slowly walked forward. Beside him was the woman who had put on makeup. Whenever they saw the police quickly passing by, they would deliberately stop outside the room's door and pretend to clean up. "I have a feeling that we're being watched." Taylor's footsteps suddenly stopped as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Although he was a foreigner, his Chinese was very good, not much different from ordinary people. The woman said with a calm expression, "It's normal. There are surveillance cameras in the corridor, and the police in the monitoring room are definitely looking for our traces. I'll go to the 20th floor and above and destroy the surveillance video there." Crown Prince, you find an opportunity to escape. Taylor shouted in a low voice, shut up. Once you destroy the surveillance cameras, it's equal to exposing our whereabouts. Follow me. As long as we can reach the underground parking lot smoothly, we'll be safe. The woman shook her head and said, the police are not stupid. They have blocked the two entrances and exits of the underground parking lot. I'm afraid we won't be able to break out even if we force our way through. Crown Prince, your life is very important, so you must escape smoothly. As long as you can escape from this hotel, I believe the police won't be able to do anything to you with your ability. Please send my regards to the general after you go back. Taylor shot a deep look at the woman and said, if you die, I'll find a way to get your bones back and bury you with a grand ceremony. If you can escape alive, I'll make sure you live a carefree life for the rest of your life. You can enjoy glory, splendor, wealth and rank. I'll keep it in mind. The woman took a mop and a bucket and separated from Taylor at the elevator's entrance. She was very courageous and directly took the elevator to the 24th floor. After leaving the elevator, she met two waiters in the corridor. Almost without the slightest hesitation, she brushed past them and easily tore their throats with a sharp dagger in her hand. Bam! Her speed was very fast. After killing the two waiters, she immediately destroyed the surveillance cameras in the upper corner of the corridor. Then, she casually kicked open a door and went inside, killing a man and a woman who lived inside. In just 2 minutes. The woman killed a total of 11 people and destroyed 4 surveillance cameras. In the surveillance room on the 4th floor of the Caesar Grand Hotel, Deng Jianmin and Qing Xuemei were gathered here. They were constantly looking for the suspected drug dealers through the surveillance screens. However, the screen in one of the video players suddenly disappeared, causing the security guard who was responsible for observing it to have a change in expression. We've found the suspect. She killed the two waiters before destroying the surveillance cameras. Damn! It's on the 24th floor, shouted the security guard. Deng Jianmin and Qing Xuemei quickly came to the front of the video. The 4 screens on it kept disappearing. From the last screen, they confirmed that there were indeed drug dealers on the 24th floor. Not only did they destroy the surveillance cameras, but they also killed the hotel staff and guests at will. Qing Xuemei grabbed the walkie-talkie and shouted, the drug dealers are on the 24th floor. Teams, pay attention. Block the 23rd, 24th, and 25th floors as fast as possible. Remember, the drug dealers are destroying the surveillance cameras and wantonly killing the hotel staff and guests. She's wearing a cleaner's uniform and has not only a dagger but also a gun in her hand. The police in the hotel moved quickly and rushed to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th floors. In just a few minutes, all the exits on the 3rd floor had been sealed. However, just as a large number of police began to search on the 3rd floor, the surveillance cameras on the 40th floor were constantly destroyed. Even the woman wearing a cleaner's uniform deliberately killed a hotel guest before the surveillance camera was destroyed. Tan Xiu's spiritual sense had been monitoring the white-haired youth and the woman. The woman's actions completely infuriated Tan Xiu. He had already guessed the woman's intention, but he couldn't watch her constantly killing people. In the short span of 7 to 8 minutes, the number of people who had died in her hands added up to almost 20. Just as the woman destroyed the last surveillance camera on the 40th floor, she suddenly saw a young man walking toward her with an expressionless face. She didn't hesitate and dashed toward the opposite party. Die! A sharp dagger fiercely swept across the other party's neck. She was originally confident in her strike, but to her disbelief, it failed. What's going on? The woman's complexion changed. She whipped her leg and quickly grabbed a pistol with her other hand, aiming the muzzle at the opposite party. However, before she could pull the trigger, her flying leg seemed to have kicked a hard stone, causing her to be in extreme pain. Whoosh! Her hand flashed and she felt her arm go numb. Suddenly, the pistol in her hand appeared in the opposite party's hand. The woman's pupils shrunk. She staggered backward and shouted sternly, "Who the hell are you?" "You." Her opponent was naturally Tan Xiu, who was the first to come to the 40th floor. A cold killing intent hung on Tan Xiu's face as he said, "The one I wanted to catch was not you, but that white-haired brat. But you kept killing the hotel's staff and guests, so I can't just ignore you anymore. So, you must die." As his voice faded away, Tan Xiu's figure instantly rushed forward and dashed toward the woman in a flash. His fist's trajectory was tricky, and when it hit the woman's neck, he also kicked her stomach. Tang Xiu was perfectly aware of his own strength. Although he didn't use his full strength in this punch, even a bull would be killed by him on the spot. Hence, this woman would definitely be killed by his punch. Huh? Tan Xiu furrowed his brows. His spiritual sense had already extended to the underground parking lot. He found that the white-haired youth had reached the underground parking lot unimpeded. Even the cart he was pushing had been abandoned. Does he want to drive away? Tan Xiu felt relieved. He knew that the entrances and exits of the underground parking lot had been blocked. Even if the white-haired youth was powerful, it was impossible for him to drive away. However, just as he heaved a sigh of relief, his eyes changed again. He doesn't want to drive away. He wants to escape from the exhaust vent. Damn! That exhaust vent must have been tampered with by his men before. If my guess is correct, his men must be waiting outside the exhaust vent. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. Motherfucker. Sure enough. Just as Tan Xiu expected, the white-haired youth easily opened the exhaust vent and climbed out. It didn't take long before he quickly moved forward along the pipeline. When he opened a manhole cover and climbed out, he appeared in the alley behind the hotel. 2 black cars were parked at the entrance of the alley. I can't catch him. Tan Xiu secretly shook his head and gave up the idea of chasing. Chapter 208. After leaving the 40th floor, Tan Xiu didn't return to Chen Wei's room but went to the monitoring room on the 4th floor. Under the astonished gazes of Deng Jianmin and Qing Xuemei, he calmly said, "I ran into that female drug dealer. She wanted to kill me, so I knocked her out. Also, I saw from the hotel window that the white-haired guy has escaped from the hotel." Deng Jianmin angrily said, "Who the hell are you? Why are you so sure that the mastermind has escaped?" Tan Xiu coldly said, "Believe it or not, it's up to you. My mission is done. Next, it's up to the police. Don't bother me if there's nothing else." After saying that, he was about to leave the monitoring room. Qing Xuemei quickly stopped Tan Xiu. She quickly winked at Deng Jianmin and said with a forced smile, "Tan Xiu, Chief Deng isn't familiar with you, so he didn't recognize you at first glance. I believe you, but the search must continue. You find a place to rest first. We'll have a good talk after we've dealt with the hotel's matter." Okay. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then, he told Qing Xuemei Chen Wei's room number and directly left. Room card? As he came to the door, Tan Xiu realized that he didn't bring the room card. After hesitating for a moment, he directly kicked the door open. Looking at the still unconscious Chen Wei, Tan Xiu closed the door and then walked to the sofa and sat down. 2 hours later. Just as Tan Xiu was about to fall asleep, the door was knocked. Tan Xiu kicked the door and broke the lock. Qing Xuemei opened the door and saw the situation inside. A surprised expression hung on her beautiful face as she walked inside. "You guys are," Tan Xiu lightly said, "she's my teacher's friend. She just arrived in Star City and needs me to accompany her for a stroll. You've also seen what happened in the Sanmao bar last night. Originally, I was going to go back after sending her back to the hotel, but I didn't expect that there would be a foreign drug dealer, so I came here." Qing Xuemei suddenly understood and asked, "What happened to her?" Tan Xiu said, "Good Samaritan, you won't let me out. I knocked him out. Alright, let's not talk about her anymore. Let's talk about what happened between us." "Between us?" Qing Xuemei was confused by Tan Xiu's words. However, she was also a resolute woman. She shook her head and smilingly said, I came here to thank you. If it weren't for you tonight, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to catch so many drug dealers, and our casualties would have been huge. Also, the female drug dealer you defeated is already dead. Tan Xiu said, let's make it clear first. I'm just a high school graduate, and I'm going to Shanghai to study at a university. So, I hope you won't report what happened tonight. How can we do that? Qing Xuemei said. Chief Deng already knows about your matter. He has decided to treat you as a role model and make a big report and praise you in the whole city. He wants the public to learn from you and strive to be a law-abiding police officer who is united with the people. Tan Xiu waved his hand to interrupt Qing Xuemei and said in a deep voice, this has nothing to do with me. I don't want to be famous because it will bring me a lot of trouble. If you want to establish your image, then just push someone out. I don't mind. Qing Xuemei forced a smile and said, we can't lie through our teeth, can we? Tan Xiu said coldly, it's not impossible for you to publicize me. But if the media interviews me, I'll say that the police are incompetent and useless. They're threatening me to help them catch drug dealers. In short, I'll say whatever I can to discredit the police. Qing Xuemei was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh as she looked at Tan Xiu. She had never seen such a person. This was obviously a good thing that could bring him fame and fortune, yet he actually pushed it away. Furthermore, this guy even dared to threaten her. Forget it. I won't report you. I really don't know what you're thinking. Others can't wait to take such a good thing for themselves, yet you're pushing it away. Do you really think this is a good thing? Tan Xiu said lightly. Isn't it? Qing Xuemei asked. Don't forget that a drug dealer ran away today. Tan Xiu said. If my guess is correct, that guy is the most important person. The one who destroyed the surveillance cameras on the 30th and 40th floors and even deliberately killed that woman. She used her life to attract the police's attention and give that white-haired guy a chance to escape. Qing Xuemei was startled and instantly understood. A bit of bitterness appeared on her beautiful face as she nodded and said, you're right. According to the drug dealer we caught, the one who ran away is Taylor, the only son of a big drug dealer in the Golden Triangle. He's also known as the Crown Prince. So, do you think that guy won't hold a grudge against me if I stand up and accept the attention of tens of thousands of people? Tan Xiu said. If he wants to retaliate, I'm afraid I'll be the first one to retaliate, no? Qing Xuemei was instantly enlightened. A bit complicated expression appeared on her face as she nodded and said, I understand your concern. It's us who didn't think it through. Don't worry. I'll definitely suppress this matter and won't disclose anything about you to the public. Do me a favor, said Tan Xiu. I have to go back. Can you send a policeman to stay here? Help me protect her. I'll come back tomorrow morning. All right. Qing Xuemei nodded. After leaving the Caesar Hotel, Tan Xiu somewhat regretted that he didn't ask Qing Xuemei to send someone to send him back. In desperation, he had to wait on the roadside for a while before he stopped a taxi. After returning to Southgate Town, Tan Xiu found that Mu Qingping hadn't rested yet. She was quietly sitting in the living room, reading a book. Recently, he found that Mu Qingping had changed a lot compared to the past. Whether it was her words and actions, or her living habits, they were very different from the past. Big sis Mu, you haven't rested yet? Tan Xiu asked casually. Mu Qingping looked up and saw Tan Xiu. She immediately got up and said with a smile, several trainers recommended a few books to me, so I'll take some time to read them. Have you eaten? Do you want me to make you some supper? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, no need. I had a late dinner. How was it? Did those trainers' training course go smoothly? Mu Qingping said with a smile, it's very smooth. They are indeed internationally famous trainers. They are excellent in all aspects of teaching. Tan Xiu, can I discuss something with you? What is it? Tan Xiu asked. Mu Qingping said, several trainers intend to take me outside for a week to learn more comprehensive content. For example, the management and maintenance of the private jet, the staff arrangement of the yacht, and... Tan Xiu interrupted her and said, you go. Leave Yinin to me. After I get my driver's license in a few days, I'll pick up my mom and ask her to help take care of Yinin. Mu Qingping said gratefully, thank you. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I'm her master. This is what I should do. Also, don't always say thank you in the future. We're family, so don't say it like that. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's complexion changed as a vexed expression appeared in his eyes. Mu Qingping was keenly aware of Tan Xiu's strange expression and asked, what's wrong? Tan Xiu said with a wry smile, I should go to the driving school today, but I forgot about it. Mu Qingping said with a smile, so it's this matter. You just need to greet the instructor of the driving school tomorrow. Tan Xiu said helplessly, our Southgate town's property manager helped me find the driving school. She also helped me find the driving school's principal. The person I'm going to see is the driving school's principal. Forget it, I'll go tomorrow. The next morning, a ray of sunlight rose from the eastern horizon. After Tan Xiu woke up, he simply washed his face and rinsed his mouth. Then, he ate breakfast at home and bought breakfast for Qin Wei on the way and then hurried to the Caesar Grand Hotel. In the hotel, Qin Wei was still sleeping soundly. Seeing her sleeping on the bed, Tan Xiu knew that she must have woken up last night. Putting the breakfast on the coffee table, he turned on the computer and began to browse the web. He rarely touched the computer. Even the number of times he went to the internet cafe was also very few. Usually, he could only touch the computer during the computer class at school. Soon, he found a lot of news about the Star City's Zhang group on the internet. Among them, there were all kinds of abuse, slander, and the Zhang family was especially miserable. That's right, can I find the news about precious ores on the internet? Tan Xiu's expression moved. He immediately began to use the divine tool on Baidu to search for information about ores. Along with the pictures and text information browsing, Tan Xiu indeed found a few good ores. Unfortunately, his computer skills were too poor, and he didn't know the channel to obtain these ores. Precious Ore Trading Network. Tan Xiu clicked on a link and his eyes suddenly lit up. Wintertide Fluorite. Star Fragment Stone. Tan Xiu browsed for more than half an hour and found these two precious ores. Especially the Star Fragment Stone. He simply didn't dare to imagine that there would be such a precious ore on Earth. One must know that even in the immortal world, the number of Star Fragment Stone was pitifully small. It was absolutely a treasure that every master refiner yearned for even in their dreams. Tan Xiu took out his mobile, wrote down the phone number on it, and then dialed it. Who is it? An old voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu said, I saw this phone number on the ore trading network. May I ask if you have any Star Fragment Stones? If you do, I'll buy as many as you want. How many do you want? Tan Xiu said, I told you, I'll buy as many as you want. Big deal, come to Tianjin City. Tan Xiu's brows slanted as he said with a deep tone, I have something to do in the next 2 days, so I can't leave for the time being. I'll definitely rush to Tianjin City in 3 days at the latest. I hope you can leave more for me. Don't worry. Tan Xiu hung up and dialed another number. He frowned because the one who answered the phone was also the same old man, but the number was different. I'll be waiting for you in Tianjin City in 3 days. After saying that, the other party directly hung up the phone. Tan Xiu didn't understand. Since the other party was selling Star Fragment Stone and Wintertide Fluorite, why did he use 2 different phone numbers on the network? Quiet Night has been bursting out for 22 consecutive days. I'm so tired that I'm about to fall apart. I'm begging for a monthly vote to support me. I'm very grateful. Chapter 209. Tan Xiu understood this, so he nodded and said, "Don't worry, Coach Lee. I can still maintain a normal state of mind. But I'm afraid I have something to do in the afternoon, so I can't come to the driving school. How about I try it on the road after I practice for a while?" Coach Lee said, "If you can keep this level, I can let you drive on the road. But if you can't, then I won't agree." "No problem." Tang Xiu complied and repeatedly practiced reversing the car into the garage, parking sideways, and even uphill and fixed-point parking. He was very good at it. Coach Lee wanted to deliberately pick on Tang Xiu to make him give up the idea of driving on the road in the morning, but he didn't find anything wrong with Tang Xiu. "Tang Xiu, is this really your first time driving?" he finally asked in surprise. Tang Xiu said, "Yes, it's my first time, but I've been in a car a lot. I didn't expect driving to be so interesting." Coach Lee smiled bitterly and said, "I won't say anything else. Let's go. There's a circle outside, which is our driving school's test lane. Except for some training cars, there won't be any danger." Tang Xiu nodded. Under Coach Lee's guidance, he drove the car smoothly from the first gear to the second, then to the third, and then to the fourth. After driving the car for a few laps on the test lane, he could already shift to the fifth gear. Increase the gear, decrease the gear. He did very well. Even when Coach Lee deliberately made it difficult for him, he could still change gears according to the instructions. More than an hour later, Coach Lee looked at Tang Xiu with a complicated expression and said with a bitter smile, "I've taught many students in my life, and one of them even became a professional racing driver. But I've never met a student as good as you. You make almost zero mistakes in the things I teach you. Looking at your driving skills, it's like you've been driving for many years." "Okay, that's all for today. I've successfully completed the task that the principal gave me." Tang Xiu parked the car, unbuckled his seatbelt and smiled. "Thank you, Coach Lee." Coach Lee shook his head and said, "I'm happy to be able to teach a student like you. You don't have to thank me. Just be more careful when you get your driver's license." "Don't worry, I know what to do." Tang Xiu smiled and said. After leaving the training ground, Tang Xiu went to the principal's office and found that Zhao Dequan was not there, so he left directly. A few minutes later, Zhao Dequan returned to his office and found Coach Lee waiting for him. He was surprised. "Aren't you teaching Tang Xiu how to drive? Why are you here?" Coach Lee said, "I'm done. I'll report back to you." Zhao Dequan asked in confusion, "Finished teaching? What does that mean? Isn't that Tang Xiu a good student?" Coach Lee smiled bitterly and said, "He's not a bad student. He was simply too good at it." If I hadn't known in advance that he had never driven a car, I would have thought that he was an experienced driver for many years. "Coach, I observed him for 2 or 3 hours today and found that his learning ability was terrifying. In the end, his driving skills could be regarded as first class. Most importantly, do you know what it is?" Zhao Dequan showed a surprised look and asked, "What is it?" Coach Lee said, "From the time I started teaching him to the time he left, he didn't even make a single mistake. Can you imagine it? A new student who started learning and practiced on the road many times without making a single mistake. He's simply a freak reincarnated from the god of driving." Zhao Dequan was so shocked that he couldn't speak. It's said that people make mistakes and horses stumble. It's inevitable to make mistakes when you've just learned something. But he had never seen a person who didn't make a single mistake after practicing for a few hours. Now it was the first time he had heard of it. Forget it. It's a good thing that he learns fast. I was afraid that he would get his driver's license through illegal means and have an accident while driving. Well, you did a good job on this matter. I'll write it down. You go ahead. All right. Coach Lee replied and left the principal's office. Zhao Dequan took out his mobile from his pocket and dialed Long Hanwen's number. After the other party picked up, he said with a smile, "Boss Long, did I disturb you? Is this Principal Zhao?" "It's all right. You called me because..." Long Hanwen's voice came out of the phone. Zhao Dequan said with an obsequious smile, Chief Long, I'll report to you about the matter you've arranged for me. Tan Xiu came to the driving school this morning. I've specially arranged the best instructor to teach him driving skills. The instructor just came to me and said that Tan Xiu has left. He's simply the reincarnation of the god of driving. He practiced for the whole morning and didn't make a single mistake. I think that with his level, it's not a problem for him to be an instructor in our driving school. Long Hanwen said, I know. I'll have to trouble you. Zhao Dequan said with a smile, it's my duty. It's what I should do. Chief Long, you don't need to worry about Tan Xiu's driver's license. I've had several meals with my friends from the Transportation Bureau. If there's no accident, I'll definitely hand over the driver's license to him within 10 days to half a month. Long Hanwen was silent for a moment. Then, he slowly said, Principal Zhao, I'll remember everything you've done. I'll also do my best to help your son. If there's no accident, I'll be able to get him out of prison within 10 days to half a month. However, after he's out, I hope you can secretly send him abroad through improper channels as soon as possible. The crime he committed is not a trivial matter. Zhao Dequan said gratefully, yes, yes, yes. I'll keep your words in mind. Long Hanwen said, all right then, I'll say it like that. The call ended. Zhao Dequan forced a smile as he put away his mobile and rubbed his temples. For his son, he had crossed his bottom line. Originally, he was still a bit condemned in his heart. But after hearing that Tan Xiu's driving skills were amazing, he finally felt a lot better. At noon, Tan Xiu arrived at the Caesar Grand Hotel. Yesterday's incident had caused the guests to leave the Caesar Grand Hotel. The originally bustling hotel was now deserted. Only some attendants and environmental workers were still doing their work. For more security guards have been added. It seems that the Caesar Grand Hotel's business has suffered a serious impact. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Under the watchful eyes of many staff, he took the elevator to the guest room where Qin Wei was staying. What he didn't expect was that Qin Wei was unexpectedly sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed at noon, applying a facial mask. Looking at the black plaster-like facial mask on her face, Tan Xiu secretly smiled wryly. Hey, weird girl. Take off the facial mask on your face and change your clothes. I'll take you out for a meal. Chen Wei blinked her eyes and snorted, why are we having a meal so early? It's still 10 minutes away from 12 noon. Besides, I've applied the facial mask for less than 10 minutes. So, just sit down and wait. Tan Xiu said, I know you're very slow in applying makeup, but I'll wait for you until 12:30. If you still don't want to go out, then I'll go eat by myself. I've been staying in the driving school all morning. You might not be hungry, but I am. Stingy man. Chen Wei curled her lips and slowly closed her eyes. 1:00. With a dark expression, Tan Xiu followed behind Chen Wei and slowly went out of the Caesar Grand Hotel's entrance. Although he said he would only wait until 12:30, Chen Wei, that weird girl, still dawdled until 1:00. She even ran to the bathroom to relieve herself before going out. What do you want to eat? As they came to the street, Tan Xiu asked. Chen Wei snorted and said, I want to eat the highest grade. Tan Xiu said, it's not convenient for me to take you to eat the highest grade. But I can take you to taste the second highest grade. Chen Wei rolled her eyes and said, if you want to go, then go to the highest grade. Otherwise, don't go. Tan Xiu said, the best grade is my mom's cooking. Chen Wei's breathing stagnated. She immediately said with an embarrassed smile, then let's go to the second highest grade. I'm actually very easy to compromise. Tan Xiu directly stopped a taxi. After getting on the car, he said, Master, to the Long's dining hall. The taxi driver turned his head and looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression. He hesitated and said, do you really want to go to the Long's dining hall? The expenses there are not ordinary. Moreover, if you want to eat in the Long's dining hall, you need to pass the threshold. I heard that they have set up a membership system. If you're not a member, I'm afraid you can't even enter the door. Tan Xiu said, I'm a member. The taxi driver turned his head with some awe. To be able to become a member of the Long's dining hall meant that one's identity and background were not simple. One must know that to be able to spend money there, one must have a certain status. One must also have a certain status. However, he didn't know that the reason why Tan Xiu was able to become a member of the Long's dining hall was entirely because of his relationship with Long Zhengyu. Chen Wei asked with an astonished expression, Master, you said that the Long's dining hall's standard is really that high? The taxi driver said with a forced smile, it's more than high. It's simply ridiculously high. I heard that you need to spend at least 1 million yuan to be eligible to become a member. Moreover, only the big shots of Star City, the surrounding cities, and even the big shots of the provincial capital, Blue City, can get the membership. A lot of rich bosses are proud to enter the Long's dining hall. Chen Wei turned her head to look at Tan Xiu and said with an astonished expression, I heard from Qinggu that your family runs a restaurant. Where did you get the membership? Tan Xiu said, curiosity kills. You better control your mouth when you speak. You can open your mouth freely when you eat. In short, remember that I'll make you eat and drink to your heart's content today. Chen Wei curled her lips and said with disdain, you're really pretending. I'm afraid that we won't even be able to enter the door. I'll tell you. If we can't enter the door, I'll definitely pretend that I don't know you and turn around to leave. Tan Xiu looked at the fast retreating buildings outside the window and said with indifference, you can directly open the door now and turn around to leave. Chen Wei rolled her eyes, I don't want to die. Chapter 210. The Long's dining hall had a height of 49 floors, resembling two golden dragons with a ball-shaped presidential suite in the middle, implying that the two dragons were playing with a pearl. Looking from afar, the imposing and majestic posture gave people a sense of oppression. Outside the imposing entrance, four security guards stood on both sides like javelins, while a welcoming lady in a formal dress kept a smile on her face as she checked the VIP membership cards of the guests. At the entrance, one by one, the luxury cars stopped and left. A taxi parked at the entrance suddenly attracted a lot of people's attention. Those pairs of eyes were filled with contempt and contempt. Tan Xiu walked out of the car with Chen Wei, who had an unnatural expression on her face. He walked to the front of the welcoming lady and calmly said, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my membership card. The welcoming lady looked apologetic as she said, Sir, you need to show your membership card before you can enter unless you're a frequent visitor. You see. Chen Wei's expression instantly turned a bit unsightly. After hesitating for a moment, she resisted the urge to turn around and leave. Shameful. She felt that it was too shameful. Because she firmly believed that Tan Xiu didn't have a membership card here. He was actually holding a pretentious attitude and wanted to sneak in. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He looked at the four security guards and found that one of them was the one he saw last time. He immediately waved to the security guard and said, You, come here. The four security guards looked at Tan Xiu. The one who knew Tan Xiu saw that Tan Xiu was calling him and immediately respectfully came to Tan Xiu's front and said, Hello, Mr. Tang. What can I do for you? Tell her if I'm a frequent visitor here, said Tan Xiu. Mr. Tang has been here many times and is our honored guest, said the security guard welcoming lady. He's also a friend of young Master Long Zhengyu. The welcoming lady's complexion slightly changed. Her expression turned respectful as she nodded and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Tang. Please come in. Tan Xiu nodded. He turned his head to look at Chen Wei, who had an astonished expression on her face, and walked towards the entrance. Even in her dreams, Chen Wei had never thought that things would take a 180-degree turn. The incredulous look in her eyes hadn't faded yet as she hurriedly followed behind Tan Xiu and walked through the door. My God! Isn't this place way too luxurious? Compared to those 5-star hotels overseas, it was much more luxurious. Tan Xiu, are you really a member here? Chen Wei sized him up for a while and asked with an exaggerated expression. Tan Xiu said, if I wasn't a member here, do you think we could have come in? Chen Wei curiously said, but that taxi driver said that only rich and powerful people can dine here. Why did you? Tan Xiu sneered, you think I'm not a big shot? Chen Wei snappily said, what kind of big shot are you? At most, he's just a high school graduate with good grades. Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile and sighed, your IQ is really lacking. Forget it. Aside from having a powerful mouth, I don't have high expectations for your IQ. Let's go. Today, talk less and ask less. Just eat and drink to your heart's content. Chen Wei angrily glared at Tan Xiu. She found that he no longer looked at her and directly went inside. She had no choice but to endure her anger and followed behind Tan Xiu. Presidential suite. Tan Xiu didn't want it, because he thought that he didn't need to spend money to entertain Chen Wei. After all, the price of entering the presidential suite was sky-high. Even if he could afford it, he didn't want to waste it. Therefore, he casually asked for an ordinary box and followed the waiter inside. Extravagant. The total area of this box is definitely more than 100 square meters. There's also this big floor-to-ceiling window. Standing in front of the window, you can see half of Star City outside. Chen Wei was like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. Tan Xiu shook his head. He glanced at the waiter, who was covering her mouth and chuckling, and said, give us a few of your specialty dishes. 4 meat dishes and 2 vegetables, and also a soup. All right, please wait a moment. The waiter withdrew from the room and soon another waiter came to serve tea. Chen Wei stood by the window and looked at the scenery of the city outside. She sighed and said, the life of the rich is really good. If this great aunt doesn't mix well in the future, I'll simply find a rich second-generation rich man to marry. I'll spend every day drinking and singing every night. Tan Xiu said with a smile, then I guarantee that your man will beat you until you can't take care of yourself. You're the one who can't take care of yourself. That's right, where's the bathroom? I'm going to touch up my makeup and then wait for the feast. Chen Wei retorted and asked. Tan Xiu said, go out and ask the waiter. Let her take you there. All right. Chen Wei nodded and walked out of the box with brisk steps. 4 to 5 minutes later. Tan Xiu's mobile rang in his pocket. When he grabbed it and saw the caller ID, he immediately frowned because it was Chen Wei who called him. Did you forget to bring your sanitary pad when you went to the bathroom? I'm telling you, I'm a gentleman. I'll never go to the women's bathroom. Tan Xiu couldn't help but tease her. Tan Xiu, I seem to be in trouble. Quickly come and help me. Chen Wei's voice sounded a bit panicked. Tan Xiu's expression turned cold as he asked with a heavy tone, what happened? Where are you? Chen Wei said, I'm in the corridor outside the bathroom. I just accidentally hit the potted plant in the corridor. The potted plant happened to hit someone else. The other party wants me to pay for it. Tan Xiu said, wait for me there. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu quickly walked out of the box. After asking the waiter outside for the location of the bathroom, he quickly walked to the left corridor. I'll pay for it. My clothes are worth 58,000 yuan, and my leather shoes are 26,000 yuan. Altogether, it's 84,000 yuan. Also, my leg is very painful, so I must pay for the medical expenses. I'll give you a smaller amount and round it up to 16,000 yuan, a total of 100,000 yuan. If you can't pay for it, it won't be as simple as slapping you. An arrogant voice echoed in the corridor. Can you wait for my friend? He'll be here soon. It was Chen Wei's voice. Waiting for someone? Let me tell you, even if the Heavenly King comes, it's useless. Today, you must pay for it. We won't let it go even if you pay less. Fuck, I'm so unlucky. The man's tone was even more arrogant. Tan Xiu was more than 10 meters away from them, but he could clearly see their appearance. He didn't expect that the world was so small. He had taught a lesson to this guy before, and now he met him again. What a big tone. I want to see what the consequences will be if she doesn't pay for it. Tan Xiu walked over and said. Hu Wanjuan's face was filled with anger. When he turned around and saw Tan Xiu's appearance, his pupils suddenly shrunk, and a frightened look was revealed in his eyes. He had heard about the matter between Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin. He even wanted to get involved in it at that time. However, the Zhang family had fallen, and the fate of Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin was unknown. He had suspected that this matter was related to Tan Xiu. How come it's you? Tan Xiu sneered and said, why can't it be me? She's my friend, and I heard that someone is looking for trouble with her. Hu Wanjun relied on his family background. Even though he knew that Tan Xiu was very strong, but in order to not lose his face, he still said, I said it. What about it? It's not my fault, it's her fault. She knocked the vase and hurt me. It's only right and proper for me to ask her for compensation. How much is it? I'll pay for it, Tan Xiu said indifferently. Hu Wanjun glared at Chen Wei and proudly said, 100,000 yuan. Tan Xiu took out a bank card from his body and handed it over to Hu Wanjun, saying, there's 1 million yuan in this card. I'll pay you 10 times the amount. Are you satisfied? Hu Wanjun stared blankly for a moment. He thought that Tan Xiu was afraid of him. A smile immediately appeared on his face as he nodded and said, forget it. Just let it be. You're satisfied, but I'm not. Tan Xiu said indifferently. If I'm not mistaken, the slap mark on my friend's face is from you, right? My friend's body is as precious as gold. I won't let off anyone who dares to touch her hair, let alone being slapped. So, you also have to pay for the medical expenses, right? The smile on Hu Wanjuan's face froze. He looked at Tan Xiu with an inconceivable expression and then looked at the bank card in his hand. He suddenly realized and angrily shouted, are you trying to kill me? Tan Xiu sneered and said, if I wanted to kill you, your corpse would have already appeared in the Pacific Ocean. I'll give you a few chances to pay for my friend's medical expenses, then this matter can be considered settled. Otherwise, I won't let this matter go. Hu Wanjuan's complexion changed. He looked at the box's door in the distance. He took a deep breath and asked, how much do you want? 11 million yuan, Tan Xiu said indifferently. Hiss, Hu Wanjun was not the only one who gasped, Chen Wei's face was also filled with disbelief. Tan Xiu said, I'll give you an hour. If you don't send the money to my box within an hour, I think your Hu family will be like the Zhang family, forever disappearing from Star City and even this world. Remember, this is a threat. After saying that, he reached out and pulled Chen Wei's wrist as they walked toward the box. Chen Wei was pulled by Tan Xiu with a blank expression. If it was before, she would have thrown off Tan Xiu's hand. But now, her heart was filled with warmth. However, the warmth was mixed with a strong sense of crisis. They returned to the box. Chen Wei's complexion was faintly pale as she asked, Tan Xiu, do you think that person will compensate you? You just gave him 1 million yuan. 1 million yuan. Tan Xiu said calmly, he won't dare to not give it. Of course, I hope he won't. Chen Wei gulped down her saliva and no longer spoke. In the corridor, Hu Wanjun was holding the bank card with 1 million yuan in it. He suddenly felt that it was a hot potato. Originally, he could completely ignore Tan Xiu's threat. However, what made his heart tremble and even panic was that Tan Xiu mentioned the Zhang family. What did he mean by that? Could it be that the Zhang family's downfall was because of him? As the TV station's deputy director, Jing Yi has been in a meeting for the whole day. After returning home, she rushed the draft and only completed 3 chapters. I'm really sorry. Tomorrow, I'll make up for the 4 chapters. Please forgive me, brothers and sisters. Chapter 211. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The Zhang family has been operating in Star City for decades and has long been deeply rooted. How could a young brat who hasn't even grown up be able to shake them? Hu Wanjun returned to the box he had just seen in a daze. After entering the door, he returned to his seat in a daze and didn't even glance at the people at the table. Hu Xinmin frowned as he looked at his son's sluggish expression. A displeased expression was revealed in his eyes. He was having a banquet with the company's shareholders, and his son, the first heir of the family, unexpectedly showed such an expression on such an occasion. Wasn't this shameful? Wanjun, what's wrong with you? Hearing Hu Xinmin calling him, Hu Wanjun suddenly quivered. He squeezed out a smile on his face and said, I seem to have run into some trouble. Hu Xinmin asked with a sinking tone, what trouble? Tell me about it. Hu Wanjun recounted what had just happened outside. Finally, he said, Dad, that brat surnamed Tang said that if our Hu family doesn't want to be like the Zhang family, forever disappearing from Star City and this world, then I'll have to pay 11 million yuan as compensation. What? Hu Xinmin's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly. The shareholders present also looked at each other in dismay with disbelief in their eyes. A middle-aged man opened his mouth and said, Does this young man named Tan Xiu have a grudge with the Zhang family? Hu Wanjun said, Yes. Tan Xiu once beat Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin. Therefore, in order to retaliate against Tan Xiu, Zhang Deqin asked her fiancé to bring some people to clean up Tan Xiu. Her fiancé was an instructor of the Rising Dragon Martial School, but in the end, he failed to clean up Tan Xiu and was instead beaten up by Tan Xiu. He was even sent to the Rising Dragon Martial School and humiliated them. Finally, the schoolmaster of the Rising Dragon Martial School compensated him with 100 million yuan, only then did the matter come to an end. Later on, in order to retaliate against Tan Xiu, Zhang Deqin spent money to hire 3 foreign assassins from abroad. But in the end, she failed to kill Tan Xiu and died outside Southgate town. The 7 or 8 major shareholders of the Hu group who were present all revealed horrified expressions. They had heard about the murder outside the Southgate town, but they had never thought that it would turn out to be like this. Hu Xinmin's expression turned extremely unsightly at this moment. His body slightly shivered a few times before he took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Where's that Tan Xiu? Hu Wanjun said, He seems to be in one of the private rooms on this floor. Take me to see him, said Hu Xinmin in a deep voice. Dad, Hu Wanjun hurriedly shouted. Hu Xinmin shouted in a deep voice, Go. Hu Wanjun quickly lowered his head and walked out of the private room. In the corridor, Hu Xinmin strode forward and blocked Hu Wanjun's path. He fiercely slapped Hu Wanjun's face and sternly shouted, Tell me, what kind of grudge do you have with that surnamed Tang brat? Hu Wanjun covered his face and bitterly said, We had several conflicts in the past, but those things have passed. We didn't participate in the conflict between him and the Zhang family's siblings. Hu Xinmin took a deep breath. He then took out a checkbook from his bosom and wrote a check of 21 million yuan. Only then did Hu Wanjun inquire about the number of Tan Xiu's private room and rushed there. Although it was painful for him to take out 21 million yuan, he had no choice but to do so. He had seen the Zhang family's fate with his own eyes. Tan Xiu and the Long family were involved, and the Long family was the one who dealt with the Zhang family this time. Tan Xiu's shadow must also be behind this. He didn't want his Hu family to fall into the same fate as the Zhang family. Inwardly, in fact, what he hated the most was not the people who dealt with the Zhang family, but the Zhang family and Zhang Fengxian. One must know that his Hu family had taken out 2 billion yuan and handed it to Zhang Fengxian, ready to participate in the big project. They had even signed the contract in private. As a result, the chicken and eggs were smashed, and they lost 2 billion yuan. However, now that the Zhang family's members were all missing, he could only swallow this loss without saying a word. Therefore, he didn't dare to make the slightest mistake, even if the other party was just Tan Xiu, who was involved with the Long family. Inside the spacious private room, Chen Wei was absent-mindedly tasting the fragrant dishes. She didn't even taste what it tasted like. Her eyes couldn't help but look at the private room's door. Finally, she put down the chopsticks in her hand, stared at Tan Xiu and asked, "Do you think they will come?" "They will come," Tan Xiu calmly said. "How can you be so sure?" asked Chen Wei. "Because they are afraid of me," Tan Xiu lightly said. Amused by Tan Xiu's answer, Chen Wei's restless mood gradually disappeared. She shook her head and said, "I really can't see through you anymore. Han Qingwu only told me that you're just an ordinary student. Apart from having good grades, you have no other special features. But now I don't think so. What you did yesterday, as well as what you did today, makes me feel that you're mysterious." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "You're not Detective Conan. Don't be so paranoid. Just eat honestly. I believe we'll get the results soon whether they will come or not." Chen Wei nodded and grabbed the chopsticks again. Just as she was about to continue eating, the private room's door was knocked. The waiter outside the door came and said, "Hello, Mr. Tang. The Hu Group's boss, Hu Xinmin, has come with his son. He said he wants to see you. Do you want to see them?" "Let them come in," Tan Xiu said. "All right." The waiter turned around and left the private room. Quickly, Hu Xinmin entered the private room with Hu Wanjun. His eyes only glanced at Chen Wei and then fell on Tan Xiu. He walked a few steps and came before Tan Xiu. With a smile on his face, he said, "I've long heard of Mr. Tang's great name. Today I finally see you. You're really young and promising. I'm Hu Xinmin, the patriarch of the Hu family." Looking at his outstretched hand, Tan Xiu simply ignored it and lightly said, "I know your purpose in coming here. Compensate me and leave." Hu Xinmin's face turned stiff and he finally retracted his hand in embarrassment. He took out a check and put it on the table in front of Tan Xiu. He forced a smile and said, "Mr. Tang, my son is insensible and presumptuously offended you and your friend. I hope you can forgive him. Here's 21 million yuan and your bank card. There's a total of 22 million yuan. Consider it our Hu family's apology to you. I hope you don't think it's too little." Tan Xiu calmly nodded and said, "I know. Your Hu family signed an agreement with the Zhangs and suffered a lot of losses. But I advise you to befriend someone with good intentions. Just like disciplining your son, don't let him run amok by relying on his family background. Sometimes, a trivial matter can implicate the whole family, just like the Zhang siblings. Alright, that's all I have to say. You can leave now." Hu Xinmin's pupils shrunk. Tan Xiu's words made a monstrous wave rise in his heart. Before, he was not sure whether Tan Xiu was the mastermind behind the conspiracy against the Zhangs. But he even knew the secret agreement signed by the Hu family and the Zhangs. It was very likely that the Zhangs had fallen into his hands and would also be destroyed by him. Yes. I understand," Hu Xinmin said with an obsequious smile. Subsequently, he fiercely glared at the pale Hu Wanjun and turned to leave the box. At this moment, Chen Wei was dumbfounded. She never dreamed that what Tan Xiu said turned out to be true. Not only did the other party really come to compensate them, but the price was also twice as high as Tan Xiu's. When only Tan Xiu and Chen Wei were left in the box, Chen Wei quickly grabbed the check and carefully examined it. Then, she said with an inconceivable expression, "The Hu family really came to compensate us. And the Hu family's patriarch. Also, didn't you ask them to compensate 11 million? How could they compensate you 22 million? That Hu Xinmin is sensible." Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "I'll forget about this matter. Give me your bank card and I'll transfer 2 million to you for the medical expenses. The rest is mine." Chen Wei stared blankly for a moment. Then, she immediately shook her head and said, No. I don't want it. They didn't really want to compensate me. It's all because of you. I take back my previous words, Tan Xiu said with a smile. What words? Chen Wei was confused. My IQ is a sore point. Tan Xiu said. Chen Wei stared blankly for a moment. Then, she couldn't help but laugh and scolded, Are you courting death? You even dare to cut at me. But, what's your identity? You can even make the patriarch of a big family come to apologize in person? He even put on a look as if he's afraid that you won't give up. Also, is that Zhang family you mentioned very powerful? I'm just me, an ordinary high school graduate. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. As for why I came to apologize, it's because I did something wrong and I know how to repent. You're very honest. I hope you won't ask about the Zhang family again. I hope you can forget everything I said today. Chen Wei curled her lips and said with dissatisfaction, If you don't want to say it, then this young lady doesn't want to ask. Knock, knock, the private room's door was knocked. Tan Xiu followed the sound and immediately saw Long Zhengyu with his arms crossed, leaning on the door with a smile. With a smile, Tan Xiu waved and asked, How did you know that I'm having dinner here? You made such a big commotion, how could I not know? Long Zhengyu said with a smile. Don't make trouble. Just say it. Tan Xiu said with a snappy expression. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, I just happened to bump into Hu Xinmin. His face was very black. He looks like a charcoal bag. I greeted him and found out that his son, Hu Wanjun, has offended you, so he just came to compensate you. Tan Xiu let out an indifferent smile and said, Heaven's sins can be forgiven, but one's own sins cannot be avoided. This Hu Xinmin is quite flexible, so I'll just forget about this matter. Have you had dinner? If not, let's eat together. With a bit of curiosity, Long Zhengyu's eyes fell on Chen Wei and asked, just consider her as a passerby, eh? Said Tan Xiu. I'm afraid you won't see her again for the rest of your life after tomorrow, so don't ask anymore. You're the passerby, eh? 4 chapters will be released today. This is the first chapter. Chapter 212. Chen Wei muttered with dissatisfaction. She then stood up and extended her hand to Long Zhengyu and said with a smile, Hello, handsome. I'm Chen Wei. You can call me Wei Wei. Hello, Wei Wei. Long Zhengyu and Chen Wei shook hands, but he felt Chen Wei's little finger tickling his palm. Suddenly, his expression turned slightly blank. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of Long Zhengyu's expression. He stared at Chen Wei with a funny and angry expression and said, Hey, don't provoke him. His woman can circle around the entire Star City several times. Also, restrain yourself and don't fool around everywhere, lest you get infected with diseases later. Chen Wei said with dissatisfaction, Tan Xiu, how can you tear down my words like this? No matter what, aren't we friends who share weal and woe together? Share weal and woe together. Tan Xiu was flabbergasted. When did we share weal and woe together? Chen Wei said with justice, last night at the bar. And also at the hotel. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, How can that be considered as sharing weal and woe? You really have a lot of fallacious reasoning and heresy. Long Zhengyu, why are you still staring blankly? If you haven't eaten yet, then come and eat with us. If you have, then go busy yourself. In fact, Long Zhengyu had already eaten and didn't intend to stay for dinner. However, Chen Wei's character, as well as her relationship with Tan Xiu, aroused his interest. He immediately pulled a chair, sat down and said with a smile, Did you two get a room at the hotel last night? Miss Wei Wei is very lucky, but also very unlucky. What do you mean by that? Chen Wei asked with a puzzled expression. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, I said you're lucky. It's because I've never heard of any woman who can make Tan Xiu worship her skirt. Unlucky means that you have a lot of competitors, and each and every one of them is very outstanding. Some of them even make my heart beat endlessly. Chen Wei incredulously said, he also has women who like him. What kind of joke is this? Other than pretending to be cool, this guy has a venomous tongue. How can women like him? Long Zhengyu smiled and said, speaking of which, it's quite a coincidence. There's a great beauty in the private room 2 rooms away from this one. She couldn't wait to devote herself to him. Chen Wei quickly asked, which way? Left. Long Zhengyu said. Chen Wei pulled out the chair and quickly ran out of the private room. Seeing this, Tan Xiu immediately shouted, hey, 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 where are you going? Stop fooling around and come back to eat. However, Chen Wei simply ignored him. After leaving the room, she ran towards the left side of the corridor. Tan Xiu turned around, glared at Long Zhengyu and said, what nonsense are you talking about? That girl was a weirdo. I was asked to take care of her for 2 days. Ah, right, she just came back from abroad and arrived in Star City last night. Originally, she wanted to seek shelter with her friend, but her friend had something to do, so she left me to take care of her. Long Zhengyu asked curiously, which friend of yours? Why are you so concerned about it? With a helpless expression, Tan Xiu said, forget it. I'll tell you the truth. She's a friend of my 3rd year's class teacher. So that's how it is. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, you're innately indifferent. Wanting to be your friend is as difficult as ascending to the blue sky. I was wondering who would have the ability to be your friend. Ah, that's right. I heard that your class teacher is a great beauty. Tan Xiu said, what else do you have in your eyes other than beautiful women? Long Zhengyu deliberately pretended to be affectionate and said in a soft voice, you're still in my eyes. Go to hell. Tan Xiu shuddered and snappily scolded with a smile. In another private room, Kang Xia was accompanying several city leaders to have a meal. Jack used his witty and humorous Mandarin to amuse the city leaders, making them laugh heartily. The wine in their glasses also quickly went down. I'm sorry, you can't go in. The waiter's voice sounded. While speaking, Chen Wei had squeezed into the private room. When she looked at the people at the table, her eyes finally fell on Kang Xia's face. She suddenly looked stunned. Beautiful. Really beautiful. She had seen countless beautiful women, but never one more beautiful than this one. Even her good sister, Han Qinggu, was inferior to her. But why does this super beauty look familiar? Chen Wei shook her head. She didn't believe that Kang Xia knew Tan Xiu. After all, Tan Xiu was like a toad looking up at a white swan in front of Kang Xia. However, in order to confirm whether Long Zhengyu's words were true or not, she still asked, Beauty, do you know Tan Xiu? Kang Xia was disgusted by the sudden intrusion of this strange woman. She was about to ask Chen Wei about something when she suddenly heard the other party's question. She immediately stood up and waved to the waiter, asking, I know him, and you are? Chen Wei was surprised, are you sure you know him? The Tan Xiu I'm talking about is quite young, only about 20 years old. He's also a student who just took the college entrance test. Kang Xia affirmed, the one you're talking about should be the same person as the one I know. Chen Wei incredulously said, could it be that what Long Zhengyu said is true? You like Tan Xiu. You're his suitor. Kang Xia looked at Chen Wei with a strange expression. After a few seconds of silence, she probingly asked, did Long Zhengyu also say that Tan Xiu heard about it? Chen Wei said, that fellow, Tan Xiu. He's a dead duck with a stubborn mouth. How could he admit it? Kang Xia secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A smile appeared on her face as she turned to the several leaders at the table and said with a smile, ladies and gentlemen, I have some private matters to deal with. You drink first. Jack, accompany these leaders well. If you can't let them drink to their heart's content, I won't forgive you. Okay. Jack said with a smile. Kang Xia faintly smiled and left the box with Chen Wei. She then asked in the corridor outside, is Tan Xiu also in the Long's dining hall? Chen Wei nodded, yes. He's the one who brought me here. Kang Xia said with a smile, let me introduce myself. I'm Kang Xia, the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Can I trouble you to take me to see him? Chen Wei curiously said, why do I feel that your name is somewhat familiar? I seem to have heard it somewhere. Kang Xia said with a smile, there are many people who have heard my name. It's just an ordinary name. Chen Wei shook her head and suppressed the suspicion in her eyes. Then, she said, let's go. I'll take you to see him. Long Zhengyu said that there are many beauties who like Tan Xiu, and there's one in the box next to him. I didn't believe it at first. But after seeing you, I believe it. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Thank you for the compliment. Kang Xia faintly smiled. As they arrived at the box where Tan Xiu was, Kang Xia looked at Tan Xiu, who was chatting with Long Zhengyu. She then said with a smile, Boss, I didn't disturb your meal, did I? Tan Xiu said with a smile, I just heard from Long Zhengyu that you invited several city leaders to drink in the box next door. Did you drink too much? Kang Xia said with a smile, I still have work in the afternoon, so I drank very little. It's Jack who accompanied them. Tan Xiu nodded and said, give me a few years. I guarantee that I won't need you to accompany them when we do business in the future. Other people will also beg to give us convenience. Also, if someone dares to disrespect you, you don't need to give them any face. Just directly slap them. If anyone dares to cause trouble behind our back, tell me and I'll deal with it. Kang Xia said with a smile, having a boss like you makes me really happy. Wait. Chen Wei appeared in front of Kang Xia. Her hands stretched out between Tan Xiu and Kang Xia as she said with an incredulous expression, Chief Kang, what did you just call him? Boss? You said you're the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Doesn't that mean he's the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation? Kang Xia nodded and said with a smile, yeah. He's the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Chen Wei looked at the two in shock. After hesitating for a moment, she then asked, so, how much is the total assets of the magnificent Tang Corporation? Kang Xia shook her head and said, it's a trade secret. It's not convenient to tell you. Chen Wei looked at Tan Xiu and said aloud, you tell me. Tan Xiu didn't directly answer Chen Wei's question, but looked at Kang Xia and asked, that matter should be almost over, right? How much money did we get? Kang Xia said, it's almost done. What should be dealt with has been dealt with, and we'll get what we should get in the near future. The amount we got should be about 4 billion yuan. With a satisfied expression, Tan Xiu said, using 200 million yuan to earn 4 billion yuan. It's worth it. Chen Wei looked at the two in shock. Her mouth was opened so wide that even a big goose egg could be stuffed into her mouth. You, who are you? Chen Wei looked at Tan Xiu and called out. Long Zhengyu said with a sour expression, didn't he say it? He's the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. I can guarantee that with the famous Kang Xia working for him, the total assets of the magnificent Tang Corporation will definitely increase by 100 or even 1,000 times in the future. Maybe he can even surpass Bill Gates in the future. Chen Wei blinked. Suddenly, her body shook and nearly fell to the floor. With a shocked expression, she looked at Kang Xia and exclaimed, I remember you. Heavens! Are you the world-famous financial genius from Wall Street, Kang Xia? I don't dare to say that I'm world-famous, but I'm really from Wall Street. Kang Xia said with a smile. Chen Wei staggered as she walked to her original seat and sat down. She covered her chest with her hand and was unable to speak for a long time. Shock. She had received too many shocks today. These shocks were not all because of Kang Xia, but because of Tan Xiu. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that the guy who had accompanied her for a long time and was even ridiculed by her turned out to have such a terrifying identity. Who was Kang Xia? She was the most dazzling genius in the financial world, an outstanding talent that countless super consortiums wanted to poach. Yet, she unexpectedly returned to China and even became Tan Xiu's subordinate. That's right. Long Zhengyu just said that Kang Xia was interested in Tan Xiu. Could it be true? Tan Xiu felt that Chen Wei's reaction was a bit unreasonable. However, he didn't say anything in front of Kang Xia and Long Zhengyu. Instead, he said to Kang Xia, "Do you still need to socialize there? If not, go back and rest early." Kang Xia said, "The socializing hasn't ended yet. I asked Jack to accompany me there. However, it's not convenient for me to leave for too long, so I'll go back first." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. Chapter 213. Lunch was over. Tan Xiu and Long Zhengyu separated as he took Chen Wei to a nearby bank. He deposited the 20 million check and gave the other 2 million to Chen Wei, who refused to take it no matter what. They left the bank. As the two of them stood on the busy street, Tan Xiu asked with a smile, "You've eaten and earned the money. Can you obediently stay in the hotel this afternoon? I still have some things to deal with, so I'm afraid I don't have much time to accompany you." "Where are you going?" Chen Wei asked. Tan Xiu said, "I'm going to take care of some serious business." Chen Wei hesitated for a moment before she finally nodded and said, "Then go. I'll go back to the hotel myself." "Tonight, will you accompany me to have dinner?" Tan Xiu said, "If you can promise me to stay in the hotel, I won't come over. I'll come over at noon tomorrow. Han Qinggu will return to Star City at noon tomorrow. I'll hand you over to her and my task will be done." Chen Wei's expression was a bit complicated as she said, "You're so anxious to hand me over to Han Qinggu." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "You're good sisters, so I naturally want you to see each other earlier." Chen Wei said, "If you don't accompany me, I'll run everywhere." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and shook his head. The following day, Chen Wei was like a dogskin plaster. No matter what Tan Xiu said, she wouldn't let Tan Xiu leave. Even at night, she didn't let Tan Xiu return to South Gate Town and accompanied her in the hotel. She said that she was afraid after what happened last night. Tan Xiu was so angry that he almost knocked her out again. The next day at noon, when Tan Xiu received a call from Han Qinggu, Chen Wei was eating and drinking in the food street. When Han Qinggu arrived, Tan Xiu said straightforwardly, "Miss Han, please don't look for me for this kind of hard work later." "All right, my mission is complete. I'll take my leave first." Han Qinggu quickly pulled Tang Xiu and was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh as she said, "Tang Xiu, isn't it just accompanying Chen Wei for 2 days? Why do you look so bitter and hateful? Did this guy harass you? I know her personality. She has evil intentions but no guts. Until now, she has never had a boyfriend." Tang Xiu rolled his eyes at her and snappily said, "She's got a big evil heart. If I hadn't caused a ruckus, I'm afraid that she would have kidnapped a pretty girl to a hotel to have fun." Han Qinggu couldn't help laughing and said, "Did she tell you that she's bisexual? Don't listen to her nonsense. Her sexual orientation is normal." Tan Xiu was surprised for a moment. Looking at Chen Wei who was engrossed in eating, he almost wanted to tear her mouth apart. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Farewell. After saying that, Tan Xiu strode away. Looking at Tan Xiu's back, Han Qinggu forced a smile and shook her head. She turned her head and sat opposite to Chen Wei. Then, she said with a smile, "What did you do? Why did you torture him like this?" Chen Wei looked up, but the direction she looked at was Tan Xiu's back as he left. A trace of reluctance flashed in her eyes. She raised her hand to cover her forehead and brushed her long hair. After concealing it, she pretended to be calm and said, "I'm not a tigress. What can I do to him? This student of yours is not simple. He's simply a god." If he didn't knock me out the night before yesterday, I would have been able to eat, drink, and earn money with him. It would have been a very pleasant life. Han Qingwu looked at Chen Wei with a strange expression. She suddenly had a feeling that these 2 days were very wonderful for her. However, her complexion changed when she heard that Tan Xiu hit someone. Wei Wei, did Tan Xiu hit you? He even knocked you out? Yes. That guy was very heavy-handed. Chen Wei snorted. Why? Han Qingwu asked. He's a dog that bites Lu Dongbin. He doesn't know how to appreciate people's kindness. It was so dangerous the night before yesterday. I was kind enough to. Along with her narration, Han Qingwu figured out the whole story. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, she was still shocked by Han Qingwu's description and was speechless for a long time. You mean? Tan Xiu originally wanted the police to disturb the bar business so that you could go back to the hotel and rest. But then, he found someone selling drugs. Then, he followed the clues to the Caesar Grand Hotel. A gunfight happened. And a lot of people died. That's right. The real-life version is more wonderful. Chen Wei said, that's right. That Tang brat didn't listen to my advice. Not only did he knock me out, but he also went out to act like a hero. Fortunately, he's all right. Otherwise, I would have taken care of him instead of him. A trace of envy appeared on Han Qingwu's face as she said, you're living a wonderful life. Had I known earlier, I wouldn't have gone to Shanghai. By the way, you just said that you can eat, drink, and make money. What do you mean by that? Upon hearing this, a bright smile immediately appeared on Chen Wei's face. She burped and said, I can't tell you the specifics because I promised Tan Xiu that I won't tell anyone about him. But, let me tell you something. This student of yours is really amazing. Even though I've been in the US for so many years and have seen countless geniuses, none of them is more amazing than him. Just wait. He'll definitely radiate golden light all over his body in the future. He'll be as dazzling as a god in armor. Pfft, Han Qingwu couldn't help but laugh. She then said with a smile, Wei Wei, you're not describing a big shot. You're describing a bridegroom. Tell me honestly, don't tell me that you've taken a fancy to my student. Chen Wei rubbed her belly and jokingly said, indeed, I've taken a fancy to him. If I marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If I marry a dog, follow the dog. I'll also call you Miss Han later. Get lost, ha ha ha. After laughing for a while, Han Qingwu asked, Wei Wei, you haven't answered my question yet. Chen Wei stopped laughing and said with a pointed expression, I'll answer one question about this topic. If you really want to know the rest, you can find your student yourself. With a puzzled expression, Han Qingwu asked, which one should I answer? Chen Wei said, answer how powerful he is. Let's put it this way. Is your Star City's Long's dining hall a very high-class hotel? With all seriousness, Han Qingwu said, if it dares to say that it's second, then there will be no first. Chen Wei said, Tan Xiu is a member of the Long's dining hall, a VIP character. As for the rest, you can imagine it yourself. Tan Xiu. A member of the Long's dining hall. Han Qingwu said with an inconceivable expression, are you kidding me? Tan Xiu is just a student, and his family condition is not particularly good. How could he get the membership of the Long's dining hall? Wei Wei, you must be joking with me. Chen Wei raised 2 fingers and guaranteed, if I'm lying, I have no other choice but to marry you in this life. Nonsense. Han Qingwu was amused and laughed. At Star City Airport. After bidding farewell to Han Qingwu and Chen Wei, Tan Xiu rushed here by car. Yesterday, he had an appointment with someone to buy wintertide fluorites and star fragment stones in Tianjin City. Since there were still 2 hours before the flight departure, Tan Xiu casually found a coffee shop to drink coffee and kill time. However, he inadvertently found a sneaky woman wearing a sun hat, big black sunglasses, and a black trench coat, who was quietly sneaking into the coffee shop. Huh? Tan Xiu's expression suddenly moved. He found that this woman looked like a certain female singer. Moreover, it was a very famous female singer. Zhang Xinya. After the woman entered the coffee shop, she looked around and her eyes locked on an empty seat next to Tan Xiu. Because it was a corner of the coffee shop, it was relatively remote and very quiet. "Miss, what would you like to order?" the waiter asked politely. A silvery bell-like voice came from the woman's mouth, "A cup of mocha please." "Thank you. Please wait a moment." The waiter replied and then turned around to leave. Tan Xiu looked at the woman and gently took off her big sunglasses. He immediately recognized her. She was indeed the popular female singer in Asia, Zhang Xinya, who was heading to the international stage. He was not a groupie. Although Zhang Xinya's face was extremely beautiful, he only looked at her for a while before he lowered his head and took out his mobile. Recently, he found that using a mobile phone to surf the internet was very convenient. Not only could he read all kinds of news, but he could also search for the knowledge he wanted to know. 10 minutes later. When Tan Xiu was playing with his mobile, the silvery bell-like voice sounded again, "Sir, can I borrow your mobile? I want to make a call." Tan Xiu looked up and found that Zhang Xinya had come to the sofa opposite him with a cup of coffee in her hand. After a moment of silence, Tan Xiu lightly said, "If you want my mobile number, I'm sorry, but it's not convenient to give it to a stranger. If you really want to answer the phone, 100 yuan per minute." I'm not interested in your mobile number," Zhang Xinya angrily said. "I just want to borrow your mobile. Aren't you ripping me off?" "You're wrong," Tan Xiu said. "My mobile is my personal item, and there are many things inside that need to be kept confidential. It's not convenient for others to see it. You need to pay a price if you want to borrow my mobile. Do you think 100 yuan is too much? You're talking nonsense," Zhang Xinya angrily said. "The things you need to keep confidential are useless to me. Also, don't tell me you don't know me. Do you think I should know you?" Tan Xiu asked back. "You really don't know me?" Zhang Xinya asked incredulously. "Are you going to use your mobile or not?" Tan Xiu snappily said. Zhang Xinya was speechless. Ever since she joined the entertainment company at the age of 18, she had gained a resounding reputation for 6 years. Her songs were very pleasant to listen to, and her extremely beautiful appearance attracted a large number of fans. She was very confident that 99% of the people in China, whether it was a few years old or an old man in his 70s or 80s, had seen her appearance, whether it was on TV, the internet, or even other media channels. Did this guy come from the mountains? Even if he came from the mountains, he should have some masculine reaction to a beautiful woman like me, right? Zhang Xinya was just observing Tan Xiu. What surprised her was that Tan Xiu's eyes were very clear, just like a newborn child without any impurities. He didn't have the lust that other men had when they saw her. Chapter 214. Zhang Xinya took a deep breath to suppress the anger in her heart and said, "I agree. 100 yuan per minute. Lend me your cell phone." "Here." Tan Xiu handed over the phone. Zhang Xinya took it and got up. She walked a few steps to the side and quickly dialed a cell number. After whispering a few words to the other party, she hung up the phone. Just as she was about to return to her seat, she suddenly rolled her eyes. Recalling the secret of the phone that Tan Xiu had just told her, she immediately checked the phone's content. 2 minutes later. Just as she flipped through the call log, a few familiar names caught her eye. Ouyang Lulu, Chen Zhizhong, Chu Yi, Bai Tao. She remembered Ouyang Lulu's cell number very clearly. When she opened the phone number and saw the number, an incredulous look appeared on her face. The number was, really? Zhang Xinya turned her head and carefully observed Tan Xiu. Then, she returned to the opposite side of Tan Xiu. After sitting down, she shook the phone in her hand and asked, "What's your name?" Tan Xiu said lightly, "You should introduce yourself politely before asking someone's name." Zhang Xinya's breath stagnated. She then forced a smile and said, "You're really a freak." "Forget it. Let me introduce myself. I'm Zhang Xinya, a singer." "What about you?" "I'm Tan Xiu, a student." Zhang Xinya said, "You don't look old, so you should be a student." "But how do you know Ouyang Lulu?" "She's from Jingmen Island." "Are you also from there?" "No, we're just friends," said Tan Xiu. Zhang Xinya curiously asked, "You and Ouyang Lulu are friends? How come I've never heard of you?" Zhang Xinya asked curiously. "Maybe I'm not that important in her heart, so she's not interested in talking about me." "Well, the question time is over. Shouldn't you return my phone to me? Also, you just used 4 minutes, so 400 yuan. "Thank you." Zhang Xinya returned the phone to Tan Xiu. After hesitating for a moment, she whispered, Let's discuss something, shall we? I'm Ouyang Lulu's friend and you're also Ouyang Lulu's friend. Forget about the money. Since we've gotten to know each other, it can be considered fate." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "That's a different matter." "Pay up." Zhang Xinya said angrily, "Why are you so obsessed with money?" Tan Xiu said, "Money is a good thing. It can be used to buy food, drink, and clothes. It can also be used to support parents, wives, and children." Stop. Zhang Xinya didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who doesn't know that money is a good thing? But we are all Ouyang Lulu's friends. Moreover, I also know Bai Tao and Chu Yi. That's right, I also know the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals big boss, Chen Zhizhong. There are so many layers of relationship between us, let's just skip the money. What was that saying again? A friend of a friend is also a friend. Since we are friends, talking about money will hurt our relationship. Tan Xiu was so angry that he laughed. We have feelings for each other? Zhang Xinya was speechless. Tan Xiu said, "Don't try to claim friendship with me. You still have to pay up. Hurry up." Zhang Xinya angrily glared at Tan Xiu and said with a forced smile, "I don't have money. I lost my wallet and luggage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here to hide." "Are you trying to renege on your debt?" Tan Xiu asked. "Do you think I'm the kind of person who would renege on a debt?" Zhang Xinya angrily said. "Judging from your current behavior, I think you are." Tan Xiu said with a deadpan expression. Zhang Xinya gasped for a few heavy breaths due to Tan Xiu's words. She thought for a moment and then stretched out her hand and said, "Give me your cell phone again. I need to make a phone call." "You haven't given me the money, why should I lend you my cell phone?" Tan Xiu said. "You just peeped at my cell phone and I haven't settled the account with you." Zhang Xinya angrily said, "Who wants to peep at your cell phone? Hurry up. Lend me your phone if you want the money." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then handed over his cell phone again. Zhang Xinya took the cell phone and directly found Ouyang Lulu's number and dialed it. A few seconds later, Ouyang Lulu's voice came out of the phone. Because Zhang Xinya turned on the loudspeaker, Tan Xiu could hear it. "Honey, do you miss me?" "I actually miss you too. Can't we be considered as having a telepathic connection?" Zhang Xinya was dumbfounded. Tan Xiu also rolled his eyes helplessly. Cough. Zhang Xinya coughed a few times and probed, "Lulu, I'm Zhang Xinya." "Ah. Xinya. Why are you using Tan Xiu's cell phone to call me? You. Ouch. You're so shameful. Don't take my words seriously." I'm just joking." Ouyang Lulu's shocked and embarrassed groan came out of the phone. Zhang Xinya said with a charming smile, "Don't worry. We're good sisters, I won't laugh at you. But, do you really know this Tan Xiu? From your words, you're very familiar with him." Ouyang Lulu said, yes, I'm very familiar with him. I know which direction his bed is facing. Her words suddenly came to an abrupt halt. It was because she found that the meaning behind her words was very easy to be misunderstood. A strange expression was revealed on Zhang Xinya's face. She looked at Tan Xiu a few times and then said with a smile, since you're so familiar with each other, he'll definitely give you face, right? He will definitely give you face, right? Do me a favor, I just borrowed his phone and got ripped off by him. Can you help me ask him if I can pay him the money I owe him later? Ouyang Lulu was ashamed and angry. Zhang Xinya, don't talk nonsense. Tan Xiu and I are pure friends. But how do you know each other? Also, where are you now? Zhang Xinya said, Star City Airport. We met by chance. Ouyang Lulu was surprised and asked, what did Tan Xiu do at the airport? Zhang Xinya said, you ask me, how would I know? Hurry up and tell him that the money you owe him will be paid later. Ouyang Lulu said with a charming smile, then give his cell phone back to him. I'll talk to him. Zhang Xinya directly handed the cell phone to Tan Xiu and said, you tell him. Tan Xiu took the cell phone and rolled his eyes at Zhang Xinya, saying, Ouyang Lulu, can you pay attention to your words later? Don't let others misunderstand you. Also, I heard what you just said. Since she's really your friend, then forget it. Alright, I'll hang up if there's nothing else. Ouyang Lulu quickly called out, wait. How come you're at Star City Airport? Are you coming to Jingmen Island? If you're coming, I'll go to Jingmen Island Airport and wait for you. No, I'm going to Tianjin City. Tan Xiu said. Ouyang Lulu was puzzled and asked, why are you going to Tianjin City? Is there something good going on? It's a good thing. I'm going to buy something. Tan Xiu said. Ouyang Lulu hesitated and said, do you want me to go with you? Tan Xiu snappily said, you're in Jingmen Island and I'm in Star City. How can you go with me? Alright, you're busy with our business. Tell me the results as soon as you're done. Ah, that's right. Remember to contact Kang Xia after you come here. She's in charge of all the business matters. She can make any decision on behalf of me. Ouyang Lulu cried out, can I not see her? That woman doesn't have good intentions toward you. Tan Xiu was puzzled and asked, why does she have bad intentions toward me? Ouyang Lulu hesitated for a moment and hummed, in any case, I think she has some bad intentions by following you. This woman is capable and not worse than me, but she's too hypocritical. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, why do I feel that you're like concubines fighting for favor in the harem? Alright, I'll stop talking. I'll board the plane soon. Zhang Xinya, who was sitting in front of Tan Xiu, listened to their conversation. She was keenly aware that her good sister absolutely liked Tan Xiu. She had known Ouyang Lulu for 7 or 8 years, but this was the first time she saw her like a little girl talking to a man. After seeing Tan Xiu hang up the phone, she suddenly had a bit of interest in Tan Xiu. She asked excitedly, I didn't expect that even my good sister, who is so proud that her tail is wagging, has a special liking for you. Tan Xiu, what are you going to do in Tianjin City? I also want to go there, but it's a pity that I've lost my identity documents. Otherwise, I could go with you. Tan Xiu said, don't. Your identity is too eye-catching. I'm used to being low-key and I don't like to be stared at wherever I go. Zhang Xinya was speechless. She really didn't know what to say about Tan Xiu, this weirdo. Tan Xiu got up and said, alright, I'm going to board the plane soon, so I'll go first. After saying that, he took out 200 yuan from his wallet and put it on the table, saying, I've paid for your coffee. If we meet again in this life, remember to pay me back. Wait. Zhang Xinya was quite satisfied after seeing Tan Xiu's performance. She got up and asked, can I ask you one last question? Go ahead. Tan Xiu said. I just saw Chen Zhizhong's number in your phone. Are you familiar with him? Zhang Xinya said. Not bad. Tan Xiu said. Zhang Xinya hesitated and said, since you're familiar with him, can you do me a favor? I'm looking for him for something urgent, but I haven't been able to see him. He seems to be very busy recently. Even if I make an appointment with him, I'll have to wait for many days. Don't you know him? Tan Xiu asked. Just call him directly. Zhang Xinya forced a smile and said, I did, and he picked it up. But he said that he's busy now. Why are you looking for him? Tan Xiu asked again. I know that the Endless Virtue pharmaceutical is in the Chinese herbal medicine business. I need a very precious Chinese herbal medicine, and I hope to buy it from him. I won't hide it from you. It's actually a strange disease that my father needs to be treated with. What kind of medicinal herb? Tan Xiu asked. River snake single. Zhang Xinya said. Tan Xiu's expression moved as he was surprised and said, this herb is very important for treating virtual fire deficiency syndrome. Could it be that your father is suffering from virtual fire deficiency syndrome? Today's fourth update is over. It's approaching the end of the month. Many brothers and sisters must have accumulated a lot of monthly votes. I'm weekly begging for a monthly vote to support _. Chapter 215. A surprised expression appeared on Zhang Xinya's beautiful face. She didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be able to guess her father's illness just by saying the name of a medicinal herb. Could it be? He's a divine doctor. Just as this thought emerged in her mind, it was immediately expelled from her mind. If someone else was a divine doctor, she might believe it. But to say that Tan Xiu was a divine doctor, she wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. After all, Tan Xiu was too young, and those Chinese medicine practitioners who were proficient in Chinese medicine were all old. It's virtual fire syndrome. Zhang Xinya nodded bitterly. Tan Xiu said, River serpent single is a good medicine to treat virtual fire syndrome. The effect will be better if it's matched with silver blue grass. Forget it. Since Ouyang Lulu spoke for you, I'll help you to the end. After saying that, he dialed Chen Zhizhong's cell number. Master, are you looking for me? Chen Zhizhong's voice came from the phone. Tan Xiu asked, there's something I need to talk to you about. Do you know Zhang Xinya? I know her. Chen Zhizhong said. Yeah. Tan Xiu said, she needs river serpent single. She needs a creeping snake list. Help her look for it. Give her a discount on the price. She's Ouyang Lulu's friend. Alright, I'll contact her later, Chen Zhizhong said without hesitation. She's with me now. Tell her now. Tan Xiu said. After saying that, Tan Xiu handed the phone to Zhang Xinya and lightly said, it's Chen Zhizhong's call. You talk. Zhang Xinya was pleasantly surprised. She thanked him gratefully, took the phone and said, hello, I'm Zhang Xinya. Are you Uncle Chen? Chen Zhizhong said, it's me. My master has just told me about the situation. I'll go all out to find this medicinal herb called river serpent single. Once I find it, I'll immediately inform you. Your master? Zhang Xinya was dumbfounded. A confused look hung in her eyes as she subconsciously asked. Chen Zhizhong said with a smile, so you don't know that the owner of this phone is my master. Alright, this matter is settled. Help me convey my regards to master. I won't be talking to him anymore. Alright, Zhang Xinya replied and then heard the busy tone from the phone. A shocked expression hung on her face as she looked at Tan Xiu as though she was looking at an alien. Master? Tan Xiu is Chen Zhizhong's master. Oh my god. How was this possible? Who was Chen Zhizhong? He was the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals' big boss, a multimillionaire with a net worth of tens of billions. With his status and identity, how could he acknowledge a young man in his 20s as his master? Zhang Xinya swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked with a trembling voice, Tan Xiu, are you really Chen Zhizhong, Boss Chen's master? Is there a problem? Tan Xiu asked calmly. Zhang Xinya shook her head like a rattle drum. She waved her hand and said, "No problem, of course. It's just. I'm just a little shocked. By the way, thank you so much. Without your call, I'm afraid it would be very difficult for me to meet Boss Chen." "You're welcome," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "As long as you don't speak ill of me in front of Ouyang Lulu when you see her later, I'll be satisfied." "Well, I've done what I can. I still have to catch the plane, so I'll take my leave first." "I'll see you off," Zhang Xinya quickly said. Tan Xiu stopped her and said straightforwardly, "I don't want tomorrow's news headline to be, Big Singer Zhang Xinya secretly dating a mysterious young man at the airport. So, stay here." Having said that, then, he carried his black travel bag and walked toward the boarding gate. Zhang Xinya stared blankly at Tan Xiu's back as he left. Her heart was filled with all sorts of emotions, sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty. She never dared to dream that she would encounter such a bizarre thing in her life, and meet such a strange person. Originally, this was just a chance encounter due to a combination of factors. She lost her luggage and borrowed a mobile phone. But unexpectedly, she accomplished her purpose of coming to Star City, and even met her good sister's friend, who seemed to have high attainments in Chinese medicine. Tianjin City. Because it was close to the imperial capital, Tianjin City's development speed was exceptionally fast. High-rise buildings stood in great numbers, row upon row of shops with a dazzling lineup of goods. The traffic network extended in all directions, and the endless stream of traffic converged into a dragon. It was already close to evening when Tan Xiu arrived at Tianjin City. He dialed the mysterious old man's phone number at the airport and asked for the address, and then hurried to the Tianjin City Antique Trading Market. Ancient Gate of the Wasteland. The strange name of the shop, and the gloomy decoration style of the shop. Tan Xiu carried his travel bag and stepped into the most remote shop in the antique trading market. An oppressive feeling floated in his heart. Black beams, black walls, and even the furniture inside were all composed of black. Only the rows of antiques and antiques on the black shelves could be seen in other colors. At this moment, aside from two customers who were looking at the antiques on the first floor of the shop, there wasn't even a staff member. Tan Xiu was secretly surprised. Was the owner of this shop not afraid that customers would steal the things in the shop? However, in order to find the old man who spoke to him on the phone as soon as possible, he immediately released his divine sense and found 3 people in a private room on the second floor. Apart from an old man with a head full of white hair and reading glasses, there was also a middle-aged man and a woman. The 3 of them were staring at an exquisitely carved coffin on the table in front of them. It was 1 foot long and half a foot high. That is, Tan Xiu's pupils shrank. Using his divine sense, his attention was focused on the coffin. He didn't expect to see demon stones on earth. Demon stones were essential treasures for demonic cultivators in the devil world. They contained a large amount of demonic power, which could be absorbed and refined into one's own cultivation and could improve one's strength. It was the same as the immortal stones in the immortal world. Immortals could absorb the immortal power in the immortal stones and refine it to improve their own strength. Get it? Tan Xiu's eyes flashed with brilliance. If it were an immortal stone, it would have a mediocre effect on Tan Xiu. But demon stones were different. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis he cultivated was, in fact, a cultivation technique to shape a demon god's divine body. If he could absorb demonic power, it would be of great help to shape his divine body. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and strode to the second floor. He stopped at the door and then knocked on it. "You are?" The door was opened. The silver-haired old man looked at Tan Xiu with a curious look in his eyes. "I'm Tan Xiu from Star City," said Tan Xiu. The silver-haired old man suddenly understood. However, he immediately frowned because he didn't expect that Tan Xiu was so young. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "You see, I'm old and muddle-headed. You just called me. Wait for a while. Some people came to my place to sell old objects. I need to entertain them." "Old objects?" Tan Shio pretended to be surprised. "Can I follow and have a look?" The silver-haired old man wanted to refuse, but he recalled that Tan Shio came to buy his precious stone materials, so he reluctantly nodded. He entered the room. The silver-haired old man seemed to have forgotten Tan Shio's existence as he continued to move the small coffin with the middle-aged man and woman. "I can't open it. You said it's an ancestral heirloom. Could it be that none of your ancestors can open it?" Finally, the silver-haired old man couldn't help but ask. The middle-aged man was dressed in plain clothes and looked simple and honest. He immediately shook his head and said, "The elders in my family originally thought that this coffin was inauspicious. So, they left it in the ancestral hall of our family. Recently, there was a big fire in our village. More than a dozen houses were burned, including our ancestral hall. We thought that everything inside had been burned, but we didn't expect to find that the coffin was still intact when we cleaned up the ruins. We also wanted to open it, but we couldn't damage it no matter how we smashed it with hammers or burned it. It's too hard. I don't know how hard a diamond is, but I'm sure that the material of this coffin is definitely harder than a diamond." "Yes, it's indeed very hard." The silver-haired old man nodded. "I just tried using an electric drill and a cutting machine, but I still couldn't destroy it. Also, this is the first time I've seen this thing. I can't tell what material it's made of, nor do I know from which dynasty it was passed down. As for the valuation, it's really hard for me to say." The middle-aged man and woman glanced at each other. Both of them looked disappointed. They had visited more than a dozen antique shops, but none of the shop owners or antique experts could figure out the value of this coffin. Even the one with the highest value was only willing to pay them 50,000 yuan. "Old man, please tell us the price," asked the middle-aged man. "We'll sell it to you if we think it's suitable. But if we think the price is not suitable, we'll leave now." The silver-haired old man had obviously considered the price issue. Upon hearing the middle-aged man's inquiry, he stretched out a finger and said, 100,000 yuan. "I'll buy it." The middle-aged man and woman still looked disappointed after hearing the price. The middle-aged woman then asked with an expectant look, "Can you give us a higher price? We're in dire need of money, so we can't sell it for 100,000 yuan. The silver-haired old man was silent for a moment. Then, he slowly said, 120,000 yuan. This is the highest price I can offer, because I'm also taking a big risk to buy this object. If you can accept this price, we can trade now. If not, then I won't send it off." "I'm sorry, but I can't sell it for 120,000 yuan, said the middle-aged man bitterly. After saying that, he wrapped the coffin with the yellow cloth again. His mood was particularly gloomy. "Wait." Tan Shio suddenly opened his mouth. The middle-aged man stared blankly. Even the middle-aged woman and the silver-haired old man looked surprised. Tan Shio looked at the middle-aged man and asked, "Can you tell me if something happened to your family? Are you in urgent need of money?" "Yeah." The middle-aged man bitterly said. "A big fire broke out at home. The whole house was burned down, and my father was also severely burned. My husband and I borrowed a lot of money to treat my father's injury. If this thing can't be sold for 300,000 yuan, we won't be able to pay off our debt." Chapter 216. With a compassionate expression, Tan Shio heavily nodded and said, "Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. You did the right thing. I don't know what this thing is, but this old man can give 120,000 yuan, so it's a good thing. I'll give you 300,000 yuan to sell it to me." "Really?" The middle-aged man and woman's eyes lit up and looked excited. Tan Shio took out his mobile and calmly said, "Tell me your bank account number and I'll transfer the money to you now. Remember, the most important thing for a person is to be filial. Even if you have to sell everything you have, I'll transfer the money to you now. Thank you. Thank you, said the middle-aged man gratefully. After getting the middle-aged man's bank account number, Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and then transferred 320,000 yuan to the account. Then, he calmly said, "Give me another 20,000 yuan. Consider it as the money to buy nutritional supplements for the old man." The middle-aged man and woman looked at each other in dismay. For a moment, they nearly knelt down in gratitude to Tan Xiu. It must be noted that they were really short of money at the moment. Not only did they have to pay off their debt, but they also had to rebuild their house and send their children to school. The debt they said they owed was actually only 200,000 yuan, and the extra 100,000 yuan was for them to build their house and send their children to school. 20,000 yuan. It was definitely not a small amount for them. A few minutes later, after the middle-aged man and woman left, only the silver-haired old man and Tan Xiu were left in the room. The old man squinted his eyes and carefully observed Tan Xiu for a while before he slowly said, "If my guess is correct, you spent 320,000 yuan to buy this object, but it's not all because of the other party's filial piety." People were in high spirits when encountering happy events. Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Indeed. Since you don't want to buy such a good thing, then I'll naturally buy it. But of course, even if you finally buy it, I'll still find a way to get it no matter how high the price is." The silver-haired old man's expression changed. He pushed the glasses on his eye socket and asked in a deep voice, "Do you know what this thing is?" Tan Xiu nodded. However, he didn't talk about this issue again. After all, the silver-haired old man couldn't understand the demon stones. After putting away the things, he asked, "May I know your surname?" The silver-haired old man said, "My surname is Hu. You can call me Professor Hu." Tan Xiu said, "Elder Hu, I believe you're also aware of the purpose of my coming from Star City. I want to buy those 2 ores from you. How much do you have?" A strange light flickered in the silver-haired old man's eyes as he said, "There are 2 wintertide fluorites and only 1 star fragment stone. They were about the size of an adult's fist. Since you recognize these 2 ores, I believe you also know their value." Tan Xiu said, "Can you show me something first?" "All right." The silver-haired old man brought Tan Xiu downstairs, through the corridor, and into the small courtyard at the back. What surprised Tan Xiu was that there were no plants in the yard. Other than the cold cement floor, there was only the house painted black. Standing in the courtyard, it gave people a gloomy and oppressive feeling. "Wait for me," the silver-haired old man said and then entered the side room. It didn't take long for him to return to Tan Xiu with 2 small black suitcases. "The things you want are in the suitcase. Open it and have a look." Tan Xiu opened the suitcase. After seeing the wintertide fluorite and star fragment stone, he fiddled with them for 2 minutes before he slowly nodded and said, "These are indeed wintertide fluorite and star fragment stone. Professor Hu, please name your price." The silver-haired old man said, 2 wintertide fluorites, 5 million each. 10 million star fragment stone, 20 million in total. If you want them, pay the money. If not, then please leave, 20 million. Tan Xiu frowned. He only had a few million now and couldn't afford 20 million. However, in order to get the wintertide fluorite and star fragment stone, he dialed Kang Xia's cell number and asked her to transfer 20 million to him. A few minutes later, the silver-haired old man received 20 million in funds. "May I ask what you want these 2 ores for?" "Of course, if it's inconvenient, then forget it." "Forging tools." Tan Xiu nodded. He carried 2 small suitcases and a yellow cloth bag wrapped with the demon stone coffin and turned to leave. The silver-haired old man quickly asked, "You know forging techniques? What do you want to forge?" Tan Xiu replied while walking, "I know a bit of forging techniques, but it's inconvenient to say what I want to forge. Our transaction is over, so I'll go back first." "That's right, if you can get these 2 ores in the future, remember to contact me. I'll buy as many as you have. The silver-haired old man was silent for a few seconds before he slowly said, although I only have these, I know someone else also has some wintertide fluorite and star fragment stone. It's just that I don't know if he will sell them or not. Tan Xiu halted his pace and asked in surprise, there's more? Who's that? The silver-haired old man said, my best friend, Lu Bai, a geologist from the archaeology department of Shanghai University. If you want to find him, I can help you. He's in Tianjin City now. Tan Xiu said with a smile, Professor Hu, you haven't had your dinner yet, right? How about we have a meal together? A strange light flashed in the silver-haired old man's eyes as he nodded and said, all right, I'll hold a welcoming dinner for you. I can also meet my old friend while I'm at it. The night in Tianjin City was like the stars falling from the firmament. Colorful lights illuminated thousands of households, and the flashing neon lights guided a river of flowing lights. Lotus Blossom House. It was a famous upscale restaurant in Tianjin City. Whether it was the dishes or the environment, they were all top-notch. The restaurant was 3 stories high, with an open hall on the first floor. There were no tables or chairs, but all kinds of inlaid calligraphy and paintings were hung on the surrounding walls. Each painting had an inscription, and the patterns of the paintings were all related to lotuses. Tan Xiu followed the silver-haired old man, Professor Hu, to the Lotus Blossom House. Only then did he know that there was an extremely demanding requirement for guests to dine here, which was to leave at least one painting in the hall on the first floor. Professor Hu's painting was one of the paintings in the hall. Tan Xiu scanned the hall with his spiritual sense and found that there were more than 200 paintings in the hall. In other words, only more than 200 guests could bring their friends to dine here. This rule is really strange. Tan Xiu followed behind the silver-haired old man, Professor Hu, and sighed while walking upstairs. Professor Hu indifferently said, some people have such a hobby. How they manage it is their business. There are a total of 24 private rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. If the guests are all full one day, it's impossible for them to come and dine again. Not to mention, this gimmick is quite effective. It's almost full every day. Hunger marketing. Tan Xiu recalled the marketing model of Apple's mobile phone and slowly nodded. This gimmick used the consumer's mentality that rare things are precious. As long as the food and wine were good, the business was bound to be good. Professor Hu, the prophet of the Lotus Blossom House, using this business philosophy shouldn't be much, right? Professor Hu shook his head and said, it's very big. Why? Tan Xiu was surprised. Professor Hu said, the rarer something is, the more it is expensive. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. Even if there were only 24 private rooms and 24 tables, if the price was extremely expensive, the profit margin would be very big. The nearly 100 square meters private room was divided into a dining room and a small living room. Because the old friend mentioned by Professor Hu had not arrived yet, the two of them sat on the sofa in the small living room. A waiter wearing a cheongsam served the tea list, drinks, and desserts. Soon, a pot of da hong pao and 4 desserts were placed on the tea table in front of the two of them. Expensive, really expensive. A pot of da hong pao is 2,800 yuan, and 4 desserts are 1,200 yuan. They haven't even dined yet, but they have already spent 4,000 yuan. It seems that the owner of this restaurant has truly displayed the essence of, the rarer something is, the more it is precious. The threshold is too high. The guests who can dine here must not only know how to paint, but they must also be rich. Tan Xiu couldn't help but sigh. Professor Hu said with a smile, you're so young, yet you can take out 20 million yuan to buy a few stones. I believe your background is not simple, right? I'm just a student who just took the college entrance test, Tan Xiu replied. Professor Hu stared blankly and said with surprise, you're still studying? Who's still studying? The door of the private room was opened by the waiter, and a balding old man in a Chinese tunic suit came in. The most eye-catching thing about him was his pair of eyes, which were bright and full of expression. Behind the old man was a beautiful girl with a graceful figure and fairy-like appearance. Even though Tan Xiu was accustomed to seeing beauties, he was still somewhat moved. Professor Hu stood up and said with a smile, "Old Lu, you're late." Lu Baiyi forced a smile and said, "Your Tianjin city is too congested. It's almost as crowded as Shanghai." Professor Hu couldn't help laughing. His eyes swept over the girl and said with a smile, "The first beauty of the imperial capital, Mu Weining. I heard that a few days ago, your white crane playing with lotus painting caused quite a commotion in this lotus blossom house." "You're overpraising me, Professor Hu," Mu Weining said modestly. Professor Hu faintly smiled and pointed to Tan Xiu to Lu Baiyi, saying, "Old Lu, the one who wants to see you today is him." "Hello, Professor Lu." "I'm Tan Xiu," said Tan Xiu. "You want to see me?" Lu Baiyi asked with a puzzled expression. "I heard from Professor Hu that Professor Lu has several precious ores in his hands," said Tan Xiu. "So, may I ask if Professor Lu is willing to sell them?" Lu Baiyi looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression and then looked at Professor Hu with a questioning expression. "I've already sold my 2 wintertide fluorites and the star fragment stone to him," said Professor Hu. "But this kid's appetite is quite big." Lu Baiyi suddenly understood. He looked at Tan Xiu with a slightly cold expression and said, "I understand your intention, but I won't sell my stones." "What a pity." Tan Xiu secretly sighed inside and silently nodded. As the saying goes, a gentleman doesn't snatch what others love. He had bought 2 wintertide fluorites and a star fragment stone from Professor Hu and was actually quite satisfied. Being able to buy more was naturally a good thing. If the other party didn't want to sell, he wouldn't force them. Chapter 217. Mu Weining, who stood behind Lu Baiyi, had a strange glint flashing in her eyes. She knew that her teacher had several precious ores. She heard that he got them from an ancient tomb many years ago and had been kept as a treasure by her teacher. She was very curious. She was curious about why Tan Xiu would buy those precious ores at such a young age. "Serve the dishes." Professor Hu didn't care whether Lu Baiyi was willing to sell those ores or not. His purpose was very simple. He wanted to figure out Tan Xiu's identity and conveniently get together with his old friend. After taking a seat in the dining room, Lu Baiyi asked in a seemingly casual manner, "You're Tan Xiu, right? The value of wintertide fluorite and star fragment stone is extremely high. Can you tell me what you want to use them for?" "Forging tools," Tan Xiu replied calmly. Lu Baiyi stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, "Are you kidding me? Wintertide fluorite is a good compatible ore, easy to cut and smelt, but the star fragment stone is as hard as a diamond. Using it to forge tools is not funny at all." Tan Xiu didn't explain. The star fragment stone might not be able to forge tools in other people's hands, but he could easily melt it in his hands. How could the method of refining weapons he knew be comprehensible by ordinary people? Professor Hu's curiosity was aroused again. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Tan Xiu, you said you want to forge tools. Can you tell me the forging method? Also, what do you want to forge?" "Some small objects are not worth mentioning," Tan Xiu said indifferently. "Even if I tell you the forging method, you won't understand it." Professor Hu and Lu Baiyi exchanged glances and secretly shook their heads. Arrogant. They felt that Tan Xiu was really too arrogant, and his remarks made them feel very dissatisfied inwardly. Even Mu Weining felt that Tan Xiu was a bit arrogant and couldn't help but despise him. Professor Hu looked at Mu Weining and asked, "I heard that you graduated from Imperial Capital University and are going to Shanghai University to study as a postgraduate?" Mu Weining nodded and said, "I studied law before, but I don't like it. I like traveling and also like archaeology, so I'm going to Shanghai University with my teacher to study archaeology." "Archaeology?" Tan Xiu raised his eyebrows as a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He had just finished his college entrance examination, and he had filled in his application for archaeology. The main reason he applied for this exam was to find precious materials that could aid his cultivation. Professor Hu sighed, archaeology is a great field of study. Exploring the 5,000 years of civilization left in China and unearthing the knowledge of civilization that has not been recorded in the historical records will have a great impact and benefit to our future generations. Lao Lu is a geology professor and the vice president of the Archaeology Association. You can learn a lot from him. Mu Weining gently nodded and said, Teacher is very knowledgeable. In just the past few days, he has taught me many things and benefited me a lot. Bang bang, the box's door was knocked as the waiter came in and said with a smile, Ladies and gentlemen, our Lotus Blossom House has welcomed another distinguished guest who has successfully passed the painting test. According to the old rules, he will come to the private room to propose a toast. Professor Hu was surprised, the Lotus Blossom House is very lively these days. In just 10 days, 4 or 5 people had successfully become VIPs here with their painting skills. Who is this person today? Zhu Xiang. The waiter said with a smile. Professor Hu's brows pricked as he said, It turns out to be that arrogant and insufferably arrogant brat. I was originally too lazy to see him, but since it's your Lotus Blossom House's rule, then let him come. Lu Bai was surprised, Old Hu, your evaluation isn't very good, no? What's that brat's origin? Professor Hu shook his head and sighed, he's a genius in calligraphy and painting. But he's been spoiled by his family. He doesn't know how to be modest at such a young age and is arrogant and rude to everyone. You should have heard of the Shanghai Golden Mandarin Duck Art Exhibition 2 years ago, right? That brat amazed the world with a single brilliant feat in that art exhibition and became known to countless people. Lu Bai suddenly said, So it's him. He's indeed a proud little guy. However, I don't know much about calligraphy and painting, so I didn't pay much attention to him. Mu Weining said, I've heard of him. His character is not good and has ruined many girls' innocence. Professor Hu was surprised, What do you mean? Mu Weining said, At first, I was also very fond of his calligraphy and paintings. I even collected one of them. But I inadvertently heard from a friend that he has a bad reputation. He once ruined a girl's innocence in Shanghai and then abandoned her. She was pregnant with his child and jumped from a building dozens of floors high, resulting in a corpse and 2 lives. His family has some connections, so they later suppressed this matter. However, in order to find out whether this matter is true or not, I asked a friend in Shanghai to help me, and the result of the investigation was true. Bastard! Lu Bai's complexion changed as he angrily cursed. Tan Xiu wasn't interested in these matters. He silently ate his meal and considered whether he should immediately rush back to Star City or stay in Tianjin City for the night and go back tomorrow morning. There was one thing he must do as soon as possible, and that was the establishment of the winery. Although he had taught Scarblade Chung the brewing recipe and process, but after the winery was rebuilt, it was hard to say whether it could produce the delicious wine that he was looking forward to. Now, the more resources he needed, the more funds he would need. If he didn't find a way to make money faster, he would absolutely be unable to support his and Gu Yin's cultivation. In addition, he also had to go to Jingmen Island in the next few days to see Gu Yan's condition. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for her injury. He had asked people from various parties to help him find the Chrono Crystal and the Devil Revival Grass. Although the possibility of these 2 things existing on Earth was very slim, he was still unwilling to give up this chance. Excuse me for disturbing you. I'm Bai Yu, the general manager of Lotus Blossom House. There was a knock on the door of the private room, and a middle-aged woman in business attire walked in with an arrogant young man. Professor Hu stood up. Although he didn't like the young man, he had to give Bai Yu face. After all, the Bai family also had a transcendent status in Tianjin City. Although Bai Yu was the manager of Lotus Blossom House, the regular customers knew that she was actually the owner of Lotus Blossom House. Congratulations, Manager Bai. Your honorable restaurant has added another distinguished guest. Bai Yu said with a smile, thank you, Professor Hu. You haven't come to our Lotus Blossom house for a while. Is it because our service here isn't good enough that you are dissatisfied? Professor Hu waved his hand and said, I've been very busy recently, so I rarely come here. Bai Yu nodded with a smile and said, Professor Hu, and everyone, let me introduce you. This is our Lotus Blossom House's distinguished guest, Zhu Xiang. Zhu Xiang, this is Professor Hu, a former professor of history at Tianjin University. Zhu Xiang entered the box. His eyes swept over the others and then fell on Mu Weining. Even his whole mind was attracted by Mu Weining. His expression was sluggish. Even though Bai Yu and Professor Hu were talking, he didn't hear anything clearly. As a young master of Tianjin City who studied at Shanghai University for 4 years, he had seen countless beauties, but none of them could be compared to Mu Weining. Zhu Xiang, Bai Yu frowned and called out again. This time, Zhu Xiang finally came back to his senses. He looked at Bai Yu and immediately walked a few steps toward Mu Weining. Trying to show a refined and courteous appearance, he stretched out his hand and said with a smile, Hello, I'm Zhu Xiang. May I ask your surname, miss? In an instant, Professor Hu's face turned black. Even Bai Yu looked embarrassed as she angrily glared at Zhu Xiang. Mu Weining didn't get up. She didn't even look at Zhu Xiang. She just sat there and quietly tasted the dishes. Tan Xiao also didn't get up. He wasn't interested in Zhu Xiang, nor was he interested in this Lotus Blossom house. His purpose of coming here was to buy the Wintertide Fluorite and the Star Fragments stone from Le Bai. Unfortunately, he failed. Therefore, he had made up his mind. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he would find a hotel to stay for the night and directly return to Star City tomorrow. Zhu Xiang slightly frowned as he looked at Mu Weining ignoring him. Even though his heart was full of anger, he still pretended to be indifferent and modestly said with a smile, Miss, I used a painting to get a VIP seat in the Lotus Blossom house. I wonder if Miss knows anything about painting and calligraphy. I've brought my work here. Do you want to appreciate it? Mu Weining finally slowly raised her head as she coldly looked at Zhu Xiang. She shook her head and said, I won't appreciate it unless it's the work of a famous master. Also, I'll give you a piece of advice. Respecting the old and loving the young is the traditional virtue of the Chinese nation. The manager of this restaurant just introduced Professor Hu, yet you ignored him. I really want to know if you have any upbringing or not. If you don't, I know a place that may make you more educated. Sitting across from her, Tan Xiao raised his head. He felt that Mu Weining's words were quite interesting. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he asked, Where? Mu Weining glanced at Tan Xiao and lightly said, The Juvenile Detention Center. Tan Xiao looked at Mu Weining with a strange expression. He was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh inside. Her insulting words were really vicious. It was fine if it was a labor camp, but she had to add the word, young. Didn't this mean that in her eyes, Zhu Xiang was still underage? Zhu Xiang's face was filled with anger, but he suppressed it in an instant. How could he not understand the meaning behind Mu Weining's words? However, Mu Weining was really too beautiful. Facing such a beauty, he could only suppress the hatred inside his heart and decided to deal with her after getting her. Zhu Xiang secretly took a deep breath. He turned to look at Professor Hu and said, I didn't expect to see you here, Professor Hu. Are you all right? My grandpa said that you're in poor health last time, so you must take care of yourself. Professor Hu's face turned darker. Zhu Xiang's words seemed to be deliberately talking about his health. After coldly snorting, he sat back in his seat without saying anything. Lu Bai looked at his old friend's expression and secretly sighed inside. He then turned to Bai Yu and said, Manager Bai, right? Please help us send our guest off. Today's monthly votes are too few. Coupled with the gallstone attack, Jingye is mentally and physically exhausted, so I only have 3 chapters. I ask for your understanding, brothers and sisters. Also, it's already the end of the month. Please throw your monthly votes to Jingye, brothers and sisters. Jingye really needs the support of monthly votes. Thank you very much. Chapter 218. Bai Yu was also very angry at Zhu Xiang at this moment, but he was a guest, so it wasn't good for her to flare up. She could only suppress the anger in her heart and nod at Zhu Xiang. Since the guest in this room doesn't welcome you, then you can leave first. Zhu Xiang frowned and coldly snorted, What do you mean, Manager Bai? I am a distinguished guest of your Lotus Blossom House, don't tell me you treat me with this attitude. Bai Yu didn't expect Zhu Xiang to be so ungrateful. Although she was full of anger towards him, she didn't flare up. She just wanted him to leave the box first, and then she would leave after saying a few words of apology. However, he bit Lu Dongbin like a dog biting the hand that fed him. With her anger soaring, Bai Yu no longer wanted to endure Zhu Xiang and said in a deep voice, Mr. Zhu, the other party has already asked you to leave. Don't tell me you still don't know what's good for you and stay here. Could it be that you would only be satisfied if he chased you out? In addition, although you have become an honored guest of our Lotus Blossom House, please conduct yourself with dignity. If you want to make trouble in our Lotus Blossom House, please leave, I will remove your VIP quota. Zhu Xiang flew into a rage. That feeling of being targeted by everyone made his self-esteem unable to take it. With his complexion constantly changing, he gritted his teeth and said, Manager Bai, you must take responsibility for your words. I want to give this painting to your Lotus Flower House, but you actually want to drive me away. Do you want to ruin your own reputation? Also, I've seen the paintings downstairs. Almost all of them are rubbish. I've already put up with my paintings being placed together with rubbish, and you still don't know what's good for you. Bai Yu was so angry that she laughed. She stared at Zhu Xiang and said, Good, good, good. I didn't expect you to have such a character. I will take responsibility for my words. From today onwards, if you dare to step into my Lotus Blossom House, it will be considered as a provocation. I want to see what ability you, Zhu Xiang, have, and what ability your Zhu family has. Professor Hu and Mu Weining also revealed anger at this moment. Among the paintings hanging downstairs, there were their works. Now that Zhu Xiang evaluated them as trash, it made them very angry. Pa! Professor Hu slapped the table, stood up and shouted in a deep voice, You're just a kid who spouts nonsense. You haven't learned much, yet you're so arrogant. If our paintings are trash, then what about yours? Rare treasure. Aren't you afraid of making a fool of yourself? Zhu Xiang sneered and said, Professor Hu, you're just a historian. How dare you compare yourself with me in painting? I respect that you have some ability in history and literature, but when it comes to calligraphy and painting, don't make a fool of yourself. I've seen your painting downstairs. It's indeed rubbish. If you don't agree, we can have a competition and let all the guests in Lotus Blossom House comment. Professor Hu was so angry that his lips trembled, and his raised arm trembled slightly. He knew that Zhu Xiang was arrogant, despotic, and unbridled, but he never imagined that Zhu Xiang would be arrogant to such an extent. Doesn't he have the virtue of respecting his elders? Mu Weining got up and coldly stared at Zhu Xiang, saying, I'll use his strong point to attack his weak point. I really can't agree with your character. Since you want to compete, then let me accompany you in this gamble. Zhu Xiang was stunned for a moment before he proudly said, You? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but even Professor Hu can't do it. How can you be better than me? Suddenly, his eyes turned and a wonderful idea floated in his mind. A treacherous smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he cleared his throat and said, However, it's not a problem for you to replace Professor Hu to bet with me. But since it's a bet, there should be a stake. I want to know, what do you want to bet? Mu Weining slightly furrowed her brows. Zhu Xiang's expression made her feel disgusted. After a moment of silence, she slowly said, I have a treasured calligraphy and painting of the great calligrapher Wang Shiji. If I lose, I'll give that calligraphy and painting to you. But if I win, what can you take out? Zhu Xiang frowned and sneered. Wang Shiji's treasured calligraphy and painting is indeed a priceless treasure. But I don't think it's enough. If you lose, you have to promise me an additional condition. No matter what condition I put forward, you must agree to it. If I lose, I'll give you a painting of the famous Tang Dynasty painter Li Sixuan's Jiang Fan Pavilion, and I'll also promise you another condition. This, Mu Weining was a bit hesitant. She cared about Wang Shiji's treasured calligraphy and painting, but if she lost it, she would only feel distressed for a few days. But she was afraid that Zhu Xiang would put forward an excessive condition that she couldn't accept. In addition, she also had some understanding of Zhu Xiang's painting skills. Although this person's character was not good, his painting skills were still very good. She couldn't win against him. At most, she could only be on par with him. What should she do? Should she just give up like this? If she gave up, it would mean that she was timid and admitted that her skill was inferior to him. For a moment, Mu Weining was in a dilemma. Tan Xiu, who was silently tasting the dishes, finally put down the chopsticks in his hand. He shook his head and sighed, I've seen a lot of shameless hypocrites, but only a few can compare with you, Zhu Xiang. The condition you put forward is actually digging a pit for her, isn't it? In fact, even if you don't say it now, I know what you're thinking. It's nothing more than using that condition as a constraint to make her sleep with you after you win. Am I right? In an instant, everyone's complexion in the private room greatly changed. Having his thoughts seen through, Zhu Xiang was immediately enraged. He bore a grudge against Tan Xiu from the bottom of his heart and shouted, Don't imagine your shamelessness on me. I do like her very much, but I won't go so far as to use conditions to force her. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's desire. At most, he just wants her to give him the right to pursue her. After he wins her heart, I'll marry her and make her my wife. Marry her? Isn't that the same as having the intention to sleep with her? Everyone in the private room revealed a contemptuous look in their eyes. Mu Weining's complexion was even more dreadfully gloomy. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you. How about this? I'll play with you, how about it? If I lose, you can state whatever conditions you want. If you lose, I don't want your calligraphy and paintings. Just get the hell out of here. Zhu Xiang's eyes nearly burst into flames. He angrily glared at Tan Xiu and sternly shouted, Who are you? Why are you poking your nose into other people's business? Tan Xiu pointed at Mu Weining and flatly said, You just said that a fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's desire. You can just treat me as a protector of a flower. What? You don't even dare to compete with me? You still dare to compete with her? Zhu Xiang clenched his fists. If he wasn't restraining himself, he really wanted to fiercely punch Tan Xiu's face. Looking at Mu Weining's gloomy expression, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine, fine, fine. Since you want to humiliate yourself, then I'll fulfill your wish. However, I don't like the stakes. I'll use that River Sail Pavilion painting to bet on your collection. My collection? Tan Xiu rolled his eyes. He turned to look at Mu Weining and lightly said, Do you dare to lend me your treasured calligraphy and painting of Wang Shiji? Mu Weining took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I'll lend it to you. Tan Xiu shrugged his shoulders and said, Did you hear that? Wang Shiji's treasured calligraphy and painting should be enough, right? Zhu Xiang was so angry that he laughed. He clapped his hands and said, Good, good, good. Since you want to bet, then I'll accompany you. Say it. Do you want to bet here? Or somewhere else? Tan Xiu looked at Bai Yu and calmly asked, Manager Bai, right? Since your restaurant has the custom of painting lotus flowers, you should have prepared a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, right? How about we do as they said just now? Your restaurant will provide the painting tools and let all the guests in this restaurant be the judges. Bai Yu shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and nodded. I'll immediately issue the order. The competition will be held half an hour later in the hall on the first floor. All right, replied Tan Xiao calmly. Bai Yu looked at Zhu Xiang and said with an unfriendly expression, now, you should leave with me, right? Zhu Xiang snorted coldly and provocatively glanced at Tan Xiao before he turned around and left. Inside the private box, the anger on Professor Hu's face slowly receded and was replaced by a bitter smile. He looked at Tan Xiao, shook his head and sighed, young man, you shouldn't be swayed by your emotions. I know you have good intentions, but painting on the spot can't be faked. Wang Shiji's treasured calligraphy and painting, even if it's not priceless, is still extremely precious. It's something that all the painters in the world of calligraphy and painting yearn for. At this moment, Lu Baiyi's contempt for Tan Xiao was even more intense. He thought that Tan Xiao was jealous of Zhu Xiang because of Mu Weining. He even thought that Tan Xiao was very stupid. He clearly knew that Zhu Xiang's painting skills were excellent, yet he still wanted to send his face to be slapped. The most annoying thing was that he also had to lose Mu Weining's treasured calligraphy and painting collection. Mu Weining was also a bit angry and bitter. Although Tan Xiao was helping her, she had to lose her calligraphy and painting, which made her feel a bit distressed. It must be noted that the calligraphy and painting was given to her by her grandfather. It took her a lot of effort to find it and buy it with a lot of money. Tan Xiao, do you really know how to paint? Mu Weining hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask. A little bit, Tan Xiao said lightly. A little bit? Mu Weining was even more disappointed. Professor Hu's eyes moved away from Tan Xiao and said with a forced smile, it would be good if Yang Qing was here. He's hailed as the most outstanding genius of the new generation in the world of calligraphy and painting. His painting skills are extremely high, and there are only a few masters of the older generation who are better than him. Upon hearing it, Lu Baiyi nodded and said, I've also heard of Yang Qing's name. He's indeed a very powerful young painter. He started to learn painting at the age of 5 and was able to paint good works at the age of 10. From 16 to 26 years old, he won hundreds of awards in 10 years. That's right. Professor Hu nodded. If it weren't for a painting that suddenly appeared, I originally thought that his 100 birds looking up to the phoenix would win the first place in the next Asian calligraphy and painting competition. A painting that suddenly appeared? Lu Baiyi was surprised. What painting? Professor Hu sighed, to be exact, it's an architectural design. It's a large-scale and magnificent design that was personally drawn by someone. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.